We do have a quorum here this evening. I'm Rebecca Lisi. I'm the chair of the Ordinance Committee, City Councilor at Large. We also have with us Councilor Hernandez, representing Ward 4. And then I saw our acting Mayor Murphy here. There we go. All right, so given that we have a quorum, let's get the meeting going. Today
Madam Chair?
Yes?
Councilor Graney's here.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Graney. I just needed to make sure we had the quorum present to call the meeting to order before going to see if there were other councilors here.
Thank you.
Yep. Today is Tuesday, May 25th. This is a regular meeting of the Committee on Ordinance. The members present are Murphy, Lisi, and Hernandez. Councilor Bacon will be joining late, and I think that Councilor Anderson Burgos may be joining late as well. We have 3 public hearings this evening before we take up item number 4, which is where I think a lot of these faces on the call are here for today. So just be patient with us. It should be closer to 7 or even 7:30 by the time we get there. So I'd like to entertain a motion to take up item number 1. And the motion has been made and seconded. Yes, to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. This item number 1 has 2 parts. There's 1A and 1B. The first is the public hearing. This is continued from the 13th of April and then again on the 11th of May. So this is a special permit application for marijuana retail and manufacturing establishment of Green Highland LLC to build and operate a marijuana retail, cultivation, and processing establishment at 26 Hadley Mills Rd. And item 1B is a letter from VHB requesting correction of traffic study information on 26 Hadley Mills Rd Application. Before we open the public hearing, we will want to hear from the applicants, and I would like to read into the record the letter from VHB. So this is from Vanessa Hagen-Burslin of VHB. And I'm not sure if somebody is here representing them today, but this is addressed to the Holyoke City Council. It says that VHB is the traffic engineer and engineer of record for Life Essence LLC, doing business as Trulieve for their marijuana manufacturing establishment at 56 Canal Street in Holyoke. As part of VHB services for Life Essence LLC, VHB prepared a traffic impact assessment, providing an in-depth analysis of traffic and associated impacts as outlined by the Holyoke zoning ordinance. It is VHB's understanding that without VHB's or Life Essence LLC's knowledge or consent, the traffic impact assessment which VHB prepared for Life Essence was included in a special permit application for Green Highland LLC's proposed marijuana manufacturing establishment to be located at 26 Hadley Mills. The Green Highland special permit application makes no mention of how the VHB traffic impact assessment was obtained or its intended use within the application. It gives the reader the misimpression that VHB is part of Green Highland LLC's design team and approved of its usage, interpretation, and application. VHB requests the removal of VHB's traffic impact assessment from the Green Highland LLC special permit application. If, however, Green Highland LLC seeks to utilize the traffic counts from the VHB assessment, it is customary that historic traffic counts conducted within the area be increased by a factor approved by the city engineer, followed by performance of an independent offsite analysis or otherwise required by the city. VHB requests that this letter be read into the record at the Green Highland LLC City Council Ordinance Committee meeting as documentation that VHB and Life Essence LLC does not consent to the usage, interpretation, and application by others of the traffic impact assessment prepared by VHB, and to clarify that VHB is not part of the Green Highland LLC design team. Okay. So is there somebody here who is representing VHB this evening? I'm sorry. The Green Highland then?
Yeah, my name's Terry Reynolds. I'm here, I'm T. Reynolds Engineering, and representing Green Highland, and prepared the site plan permitting package for them. Just a clarification, VHB's documents are public documents and publicly available, and no claim of any of their findings was suggested that wasn't theirs. It was fully referenced as their own document. So that said, engineering requested us to obtain another traffic engineer report, and we have done that, and that has been submitted in regard to potential traffic impacts and trip generation. Basically the outcome of that is basically the same as what we had put in for initial traffic impact statement, with no potential anticipated impacts to traffic in the area and delays. So with that said, if I can share my screen, I can go over the project.
That would be great. Do you have the share screen capability at this moment?
I do.
Great.
All right. So what's being proposed is a facility at 26 Hadley Mills Road. Hadley Mills Road is a small private road off of Bridge Road, and it connects into a facility of a number of different buildings, 20 Hadley Mills Road, True Leaves processing area to the south, and then Hadley Mills 26 is a 44,000 square foot building that was previously owned by Holyoke Gas and Electric and part of the subdivision of the area. What's being proposed here is a manufacturing, cultivation, and small retail business in the building. The building's 3 stories on the left side here, and then 1 story on the far right. Basically what's proposed is a small parking lot with 15 spaces here. That's for employee parking. And then 6 spaces in this area for retail parking. The calculations for this site requires only 5 spaces. Basically, we were projecting up to 16 employees per shift at this facility. And the zoning requirement is 1 space per 4 employees for a total of 4 spaces required. And then the small retail space is just under 300 square feet, which is 1 per 300, and that requires 1 space. What's being provided are 21 spaces out here, including a handicap accessible space here. Retail customers are directed to park in this area on the north side of the building. The dispensary sign is located right above the parking so that people can see it as they come down Hadley Mills Road. Employee parking is routed with some wayfinding signs here to come through the passageway and into the larger parking area here. Additionally, a requirement in Holyoke is that we have a secure area for handling all marijuana deliveries and shipments, and that's handled here in an internal sally port. So deliveries will come in Hadley Mills Road and come into a garage area inside here where any shipping and receiving will be handled inside. Additionally, any marijuana waste will be handled in the building and removed within the sally port area. There's a small enclosed dumpster area proposed on the north side here for just standard office waste, standard domestic trash. The retail parking is, as I said, on the north side. Retail people will be routed to walk through the alleyway here to the entrance here at the back of the building, and employees will enter also at an adjacent door here. There's minimal planting proposed out here, a couple dogwoods just to provide a little shade for the parking area. Mechanical equipment is out here with a CO2 tank proposed right here for a pad there. We have HVAC proposed and a generator pad, a transformer pad rather, outside. Currently there is no generator proposed for the facility. So that's basically that, and I'll show you also, let's see if I can get, I'm going to show the floor layout here. You all see that?
Yep.
So basically this is the small retail area, vestibule, where security would basically screen anybody that's coming in, and then the 300 square foot sales and display area, counter space, and then a waiting area. The facility has a kitchen and an extraction processing area in here. And then the bulk of the manufacturing is in 3-story area on this side of the building. So that on the first floor, we have that. Second and third floors are all cultivation. And then these are the elevations. Basically, this is showing this is the north side elevation of the building. This is north side, and then the other elevations, as you see, this is the parking lot side over here with our dispensary entrance and then employee entrance here. And then in terms of stormwater management, I'm sorry. We've got a subsurface system proposed for the facility here that's collecting the roof runoff for the main building. And then it's tied into an existing stormwater system that comes out to the north passageway, Hadley Mills Road. Also have a water quality system picking up the parking lot here that's tied into a stormwater system in the southern passageway. The utilities right now remain the same. As we move forward with mechanical design, that may change. So that's pretty much it. The lighting is shielded lighting, just downcast in the parking lot areas for safety and security around the building.
Great, thank you for that. All right, so does any of the committee members have a question for Mr. Reynolds and Green Highland?
Just one, if I can.
Councilor Murphy, acting Mayor Murphy.
Yeah, Mr. Reynolds. It's just from an aspect of customer service and retail. So I'm interested in knowing why the retail is far away from the door, but the employee parking is right at the door.
It was requested by TrueLeaf that the retail be separated out so that we do not have retail customers that are unfamiliar with the site coming through this access passage. And so that was a reasonable request, and that way you can have unfamiliar people sort of routed away from this passage area and potentially causing security issues for our abutter.
So that was at their request.
That was at their request, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Reynolds, when you were showing the schematic of the building, the outside,
Yeah.
and you're showing the bricks, can you say anything about the condition of the building, or what sort of exterior renovations you might have to do, if any?
Anticipate there's a reasonable amount of brickwork that's going to need to be done, pointing, brick repair. A few of the windows need some work. It's a fair amount of work that they're going to need to do on this building. Shoot, I lost that. I can bring it up, but there's roof repairs that have been done. There's gutter work that needs to be done. There's some odd sort of work that needs to be done on it. Nothing major in a structural way, but there's been areas where the brick has been deteriorated from ongoing water splashing against it and that sort of thing.
Okay, and do we understand that it is in a condition where it can be repointed and worked with, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we understand that at that point. Great. I'm looking over the letter from the planning department, and it looks like everything is in order from their perspective. The few outstanding things were the landscape design, but it seems that there's only those 2 plantings as far as I understand. So is this the landscape plan that we're looking at?
That is the extent of it, yes. There's minimal green area to be had. So basically, this area will be loamed and seeded. That will allow for grass here over our stormwater system and snow storage. And then the trees have been added as an additional shade, parking area.
Great. And then while I do have a letter from the engineer dated March 15th, he sent a note saying that there were some changes or amended documents that were submitted. So first I need to know, did you submit them through the clerk's office so that everybody has an updated version of these documents?
No, because basically nobody was going to be able to get them by the time this meeting was going to happen in paper form. That's why they were all sent out full package to everybody in electronic form. Both engineering and planning received all of that. No other departments responded with any comments with the initial submittal of all plans in paper form.
Mm-hmm. Sure, it is, however, just customary that so that we know which documents are the final documents that we're looking at, and that the comments are referencing those documents, that we do have them in hand before we proceed. Given the datedness of this letter, I mean, we could go through the points that the engineer makes, but I don't think that we can make a final determination here this evening without having his review completed.
I guess the only thing Bob Parent sent out comments about half an hour ago in regard to the traffic report. And he was questioning the traffic engineer's assessment using the retail space and not including all the storage rooms, bathrooms, and other things that you might if you were looking at a CVS. I did speak with the traffic engineer and why they handle it that way, and basically that they had considered those accessory spaces as part of the manufacturing. And they said they could revise it and put them in. It would make no effect change-wise in the determination of impacts to adjacent areas. They would be glad to do that. I would suggest that we've really tried to accommodate all the different things from Ulta surveys that aren't required and so on, and jump through a lot of hoops trying to make appease everybody's comments. I would ask that if we can, if there's an issue with how that area has been calculated, that maybe we could condition that and move this along.
I don't mind going through the comments that are here and then seeing where the committee wants to go with that last piece. So what I do have from the engineer thus far is that we want to confirm that the proposed improvements are located on the property and that it's controlled by the applicant. And then also determine if there are any impacts to rights or easements on the property. A complete ALTA, American Land Title Association survey of the property should be submitted to the applicant. Was that met at this point in time?
All of that has been addressed. A parent has an ALTA survey, which again, is, I'm going to say is not a requirement of zoning at all. It is something that some applicants will put in due to the form of the corporation and the financing required. But what was provided was a full detailed property line plan and an ALTA survey to boot has been submitted. So yes,
Okay.
I say very confidently that everything is located on the property.
And then do you,
Can I just add a caveat to that, Terry?
your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Isaac Fleischer. I'm an attorney with Bacon Wilson, and I'm also here on behalf of Green Highland.
Go ahead, Mr. Fleischer.
I just wanted to clarify that this most recent site plan, it does include a wayfinding sign that Terry had mentioned. This is the sign that directs retail one way, cultivation employees another way. That retail sign is located on the property of an abutter. We've discussed that with the abutter. They were the ones that requested the traffic be separated in that way. And they're fine with it. If there was any issue, we would be happy to remove it from their property, but it's really for their benefit. I just wanted to clarify that one piece.
Sure, that I think refers to item number 3 in the engineer's letter regarding the interior circulation plan and the wayfinding signage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in number 1, we just want to be assured that you have all the easements and rights to the property that you're going to be working on. The second comment from the engineer is that there's a documentation of rights or agreements that allow for the applicant's proposed access through the True Leave property. So have you secured that documentation?
Yeah, so we've discussed it at length with True Leave. We have an existing right of way across their property that's in the title record. But in order to, I mean, this speaks more to what I think is they're referring to as a traffic circulation plan. We have a draft agreement with the abutters regarding how traffic will be allocated and how maintenance obligations will be allocated between. Really, there's actually 3 different property owners in this area, and we've been working on a mutual easement agreement that's going to be a lot more detailed than what's in the title record, and expecting to finalize that and record it in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The 4th item is that you are completing your own traffic impact study, and I think I heard Mr. Reynolds say earlier that has been completed. Number 5 is the applicant should confirm that there are no impacts to any rights that have been reserved by the G&E or others, and that they have adequate capacity to receive the redirected discharges. So it's a stormwater regulations.
So, Councilor Lisi, I don't know if you have my response letter that I included. in the revised plans. It addresses all of these items. Yes, we have.
Mhm.
That
And
confirmed
again,
it all.
because the clerk is the clerk of records, we don't receive anything without it first being accepted by the full city council. So we do not have the response. We will not have that response until it comes through to the clerk's office and is accepted by the city council.
Okay. Well, yeah, I can speak to it. Basically, that has been addressed. We have coordinated with Holyoke Gas and Electric in terms of the tie-in for the stormwater. We have been waiting. Actually, stormwater submittal was submitted 2 months ago, and no action has been taken on it to date.
Okay, so this is one of the items that we'll work to condition the permit on if we get that far. Adequacy of parking facilities. I think you showed us that you do have, at least by the parking ordinances and the zoning, an adequate amount of parking for your employees. Applicants should be required to show the applicant should be required to provide employee projections at full operation and demonstrate how employee parking needs will be met when combined with peak hour customer needs. I think that you have 15 parking spaces, and that would, if you're doing 3 shifts with 15 employees a shift, that's 45 employees, but it's 15 per shift, so that seems to be adequate.
That is our opinion too.
Site utilities. All existing and new utilities should be shown on the site plan. In addition, the applicant should be required to locate and verify the condition of existing service and confirm that it is separate from any roof or storm drains prior to the application of the for a building permit.
We are aware of that. And as I said earlier, as the mechanical design moves forward, they'll determine if they need any upgrades at that point.
Mm-hmm. And just to make it clear, it says that all drains will be required to connect to the existing separate storm line.
Right. Right now, there's nothing. It's all just free runoff off the roofs. So part of the design is to put gutters on the main roofs and bring those down to the ground.
Okay. All right. Again, any questions from committee members before we move forward? Councilor Murphy, are you looking to speak?
Yeah, if I could just, and Terry, maybe you can give me this. So I know you said 16 employees. Is that 16 a shift, and how many shifts?
There proposed to be 3 shifts, I believe, 16 per shift.
Okay, and obviously the third shift would not have retail. So, right. So would that be less, or is it 16 all the manufacturing, and then how many would be in retail?
It's anticipated 16 overall.
Okay. All right. And it's just manufacturing and retail, correct? No cultivation. So.
No, it's cultivation. The main building is 3 stories of cultivation.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We are joined by Councilor McGivern, who has his hand up. Councilor McGivern, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Councilor Lisi, and I thank the petitioners for the presentation. Jerry or Isaac, just on the parking lot you're showing, how does one drive into that parking lot? I seem to remember there's a number of buildings that kind of cut that off.
I can speak to that. So this is Hadley Mills Road. This is the main road to sort of the development. So there's a wayfinding sign here that directs employees to come through the alley down this way. Another sign here telling them to go that way, and then another sign directing them into the parking lot.
Okay. And the amount of parking for employees, I understand from what I've heard this evening, is adequate, but when the retail part of it is open, what's the proposal for for allowing for parking for customers?
Customer parking is proposed on the south side of the building or east side of the building here and over here. It's going to be, it's a very small retail space. So not anticipating a lot of retail parking. And the retail parking will be directed to walk through the alleyway here to the ramp doorway.
And if you got a lot of retail, because we like retail, Terry, it's you have any plan Bs?
Well, at this point, no. It's not exactly a very prominent site. It's not anticipated it's going to be, you know, any nonstop flow of traffic. I think it's going to be more like some of the retail spaces, I believe, over in Dwight Street, that area. So no, the 6 spaces are what we have allocated for retail.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is a public hearing, so I'd like to entertain a motion to allow the public to speak if there's anyone here in favor or against the proposal.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor or against the proposal before us? And I'm not seeing any hands here or amongst the attendees. So seeing that there's none, I'll entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
You know what? Actually, just because we have to receive these other documents, I think we actually should keep it open.
Yeah. Make a motion, we continue the public hearing.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to continue the public hearing. We need a date certain, and I think it's really just wrapping up these last few things. So I would say let's put it on the agenda for the 8th, which is our next meeting.
Okay.
6/8 at 6:30 p.m. Okay, so for the applicants, Mr. Reynolds and anyone who's with Green Highland, we need to keep the public hearing open in order to receive those documents so that we are referring and completing the package here. It looks like everything is in order as far as you've described it. The one outstanding thing, we may have comments from the engineer regarding how satisfactory the plans describe the storm drain connections. And I think that it should be relatively quick to just make sure that that's in order and receive the final documents for the 8th.
In regard to the stormwater, I mean, this is has been submitted for a stormwater permit, and I would expect that we could simply condition that it receive the stormwater permit.
Right, but because we don't have the documents, we can't even accept. We have to keep it open in order to accept the documents. This body has not received the outstanding documents, and therefore your application is not complete without those documents that you submitted.
Okay, but I mean, the committee has received all the stormwater documents, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see. Okay, so there was a motion made and seconded to continue the public hearing to June 8th at 6:30 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. So we'll see you again at our next meeting at 6:30. And again, I think that as long as we have all the documents received and accepted, we should be able to move through that pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so is there a motion then to take up item number 2?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to take up item number 2, which is a public hearing for a special permit application of Green Valley Analytics, LLC for marijuana manufacturing establishment at 306 Ray Street for a testing facility. Is somebody here representing Green Valley Analytics?
Hi, Councilor Lisi, Jonathan Ferguson.
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks so much for joining us. Okay. Do you have a presentation for us as well?
Yes, if you could make my business partner, Mark Zatirka, the host. He has the presentation we can put up on the screen for you.
Jeffrey, I think that you're able to do that for us.
He should have privilege.
Great.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Well, first, I'd like to thank Acting Mayor Murphy, Councilor Lisi, and the rest of the Ordinance Committee for your time tonight. I really appreciate that, and also for the recent changes to the ordinance that were made. I think that's really going to help Holyoke become, the real epicenter for cannabis industry in Massachusetts. Also, a small disclaimer: if you see me jut off the screen this way, my wife is 1 week overdue with our first baby, so I don't anticipate her giving birth right now, but just a heads up that is a real possibility.
I'm glad you have priorities, Jonathan. I'm glad you have priorities.
Yes, thank you. We're very, very excited over here, very anxious, but this is also very exciting for us as well. So as I mentioned, my name is John Ferguson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Green Valley Analytics. We are an independent testing lab that is applying for a special permit for operation in Holyoke on Race Street, 306 Race Street. I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I've been in equipment sales in the life science industry for the last 15 years. So selling equipment into labs such as the testing lab we're looking to open. My partner and co-founder, Mark Zatirka, was a previous CEO of INSA and also owner of a specialty pharmacy. And our lab director, Tanisha Boggins, who has extensive experience in the independent testing lab community. All of them joining us today, along with James Cunningham, who is the landlord owner of the property we are occupying.
Okay.
So we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're applying for a special permit as a marijuana testing facility in accordance with Appendix A, Section 7.10 of the city's Code of Ordinances. We're also applying for an independent testing lab license through the Massachusetts CCC. We expect to have our provisional license next month. As we see it, the work that these testing labs perform is pretty critical from a health and safety perspective to make sure that there is safe access to cannabis for all Massachusetts residents. We're looking to use some high precision cutting edge technologies, including high pressure liquid chromatography as our primary testing method. We'll be testing everything from cannabinoids to microbiologicals to pesticide screening, again, to make sure that there is a quality product with known concentration for all consumers in the state. Just a brief overview of what's tested. Obviously, all cultivators and manufacturers, which there is a large growing number of in the city of Holyoke, must be tested in batches of approximately 10 pounds. This includes all concentrates, marijuana-infused products, also must be tested. It needs to be tested by an independent testing lab, must be ISO 17025 accredited, and the testing lab must have a host community agreement from the municipality, which we have obviously already received from Holyoke. Just a brief 30,000-foot view of what the testing offerings we're going to be doing. There's a lot of different cannabinoid profiles we will be testing for: heavy metals, microbials, pesticides, residual solvents in concentrates, as well as vitamin E acetates in all of the vaping products that are on the shelves in mass. Just a brief mission statement. So really what we're trying to do is provide some accurate analytical testing to have results that are going to ensure all products are safe and predictable for the patients and the end users. We're looking to do that by providing great customer service, accurate results, and affordable price for the cultivators and manufacturers to make sure that they can get their products out on the shelves. Obviously, to be fully compliant with all state and local municipalities, to be on the cutting edge of technology. This is a very unique type of business where there's a lot of constant change and flux in which the state has come down with different regulations that need to be met. So we need to make sure we're on top of that, and also to live by our core set of values. Just a quick timeline. We formed the LLC last November. We've secured a location at 306 Race Street. Community host agreements in place. Our provisional application has been submitted. We've completed our community outreach meeting. responded to multiple RFIs, both from the city and the state. Here we find ourselves tonight at the Ordinance Committee meeting and hopefully resulting in a full City Council review. We should, again, expect to have our provisional license the middle of June. I believe June 17th is the CCC's next meeting. We'll also be doing some minor lab renovations to the building, which I'll talk about in a moment. Once that's completed, installing all of our equipment, obtaining our ISO accreditation, getting the final license from the state, getting our certificate of occupancy, and then commencing operations, hopefully by the end of the year. So it's a long list of stuff to do, but we're making great progress. So here's just a picture of the facility on the corner of Race and Cabot Street. We will be occupying the lower level of this building. So it's approximately 4,300 square feet of space. A little less than half of that will be the actual lab operations where we will be performing the analytical testing. The rest of that will be office space, waste room, conference room, bathrooms, and things of the like. Just an overview of the building itself, along with a parking lot that is also owned by Cunningham Equities. So we have parking along the back of the building where our Sally Port will be located, which I'll go over in detail in our Locus plan. And there's at least 10 parking spots that we'll have access to. We anticipate a lab staff of around 5 employees. So we believe there is sufficient, more than sufficient and adequate parking available, both on the lot across the street as well as around the rear of the building, where there will be some spots located as well. This is an overview of the facility site layout. So in the top part of that L is where the analytical lab space is going to be located. There will be an entrance into the lab where the employees will gown up into the proper PPE and enter into the lab space where all the analytical equipment will be located. And in the rear of that space, or the top of the L, if you will be our sample prep area. So all of the equipment needed to prepare these samples to run through the analytical equipment. And then on that lower left corner, we'll have a room specialized in the microbiological analysis of these different products. Again, on the right-hand side is mainly offices, conference rooms. We will have a waste room that's dedicated to the green waste that will be under surveillance and under camera and with limited access. Our sample receiving room, where we will bring the samples in, weigh them and check them into our system, into our LIMS system, as well as into metric to comply with the chain of custody requirements. So the dark lines that you can see in this are the walls that will be added in the building. Everything else, all of the rooms are all existing. So we'll be doing, again, very minor interior renovations to the space. On the top right corner, you can see a detail of the windows where we will be adding bars and glass break sensors. The bars will be on the interior of the window, and the windows will also be tinted to, again, prevent diversion. This is just another view of the pre and post renovations, just to give you an idea of again, we'll be adding removing a couple of bathrooms in that northern corner, adding a couple of walls, adding a couple of doors, and that should be the extent of any renovations on the interior of the building.
Where is that room though?
Yeah, sorry.
So that room where so when you're adding these two, bathrooms, is this where is this in the the larger schematic? In the lower right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there are 2 ADA compliant bathrooms. They're already there. We're just making them bigger to make them ADA compliant. Mm-hmm. And then the 2 bathrooms that were in that northern section of the building are going to be removed to give us additional space for our sample prep area.
Right. Okay. I see it now.
And on the next slide is our Locus Map. This is just showing, we have a larger version of this that we could zoom in on as well at the end of the presentation, so we can show the proposed Sally port. Or if Mark can zoom in on it now, that's great. So there is a common area access in the rear of the building. So what we're proposing is to add fencing that would give the employees from the other tenants in the building access to those rear egress steps. And where the mouse is hovering over will be our enclosed Sally port that will have our dumpsters as well as access for the courier vehicle into the rear of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is the fence addition is there's already a fence there, but we're going to be putting a new fence in, and that is the extent of any exterior renovations of the building. Mm-hmm. Just a brief overview of the security features. Both the Holyoke Fire Department and Holyoke Police Department have approved our layout and our security plan. Since we are an independent testing lab, this facility will not be open to the public. Anybody that does come in, whether it's somebody doing maintenance on our equipment or anybody coming into the facility, will need to be 21 or older. There's of course no on-site consumption. We will have perimeter alarms, motion detectors, internal and external video cameras, all part of the CMRs that the state has laid out for these types of facilities. Any kind of failure of any systems will send a notification. We'll have alarm battery backups, key card access only, and we will be dealing with a very, very small sample size in relation to any cultivation or manufacturing facility. The entire building is also on a natural gas generator, so we will have backup power to the facility as well. And just a quick overview too about labs. So labs aren't retail, and I think that's important to understand. There will be no lines or customers waiting outside the building. There'll be no products produced or distributed in this facility. All transactions are going to be done through our online portal. So any cultivator or manufacturer will be able to go onto our website, create an order, have it tracked through Metric. And once that order is submitted, we will go and pick up that order and bring it back to our Sally port. Again, no police detail will be required, and there will be no odor coming from this facility whatsoever. Just another brief slide on security and transport. So we are planning on having varying days and varying times when we will be having a sample receiving or intake. All of the samples are going to be received through the Sally port in the rear entrance of the building, again, following all of the state guidelines. All of the samples from particular clients will be stored in individual secured totes with GPS tracking within each tote. And the transport vehicle will be unmarked, have a live camera feed, and various other security and tracking devices, again, all per the state's codes. Our locked, non-transparent fence will surround the Sally port. We'll have no exterior signage. We'll have one small placard on the interior of the building in the common area. And we're also planning on doing a monthly crisis training with our employees.
Great.
As far as the waste removal, so all waste is going to be brought out the rear entrance, secured, non-shared locked dumpster inside of our locked Sally port. So again, just a brief cycle of how the samples come in. So once they come in, they're scanned, weighed, checked into our system. The technician who performs the sample intake is also not the same technician who will be disposing of that, again, to prevent diversion. As the sample is weighed, it's all recorded on camera, and the time of disposal is also recorded by 2 staff members. Any samples that are left over from the analytical process are rendered unusable with a solvent and stored in our green waste room inside the facility again, in a limited access area. The waste room will have a video monitoring system, and once that waste container is full, waste management is scheduled and picks up the container through as set forth by the Mass Department of Public Health. Our staffing hours, we're planning on hiring a minimum of 30% Holyoke residents for our non-security jobs, obviously giving hiring preference for security personnel to retired HPD. And we are initially planning on hiring about 6 staff members, including our lab director, lab technicians, lab analysts, courier, and some various administration positions. Our initial hours of operation will be from Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And our plan is to, as we scale up, add additional shifts and additional hours to be able to compete with other labs in the state. And then finally, just a part of our positive impact plan, we're really excited to be located in Holyoke. We're really looking forward to supporting and volunteering to help revitalize the Canal area. We understand that there is an additional project to extend the Canal walk to go right in front of our building. So we're very excited about that. Obviously, as part of our host community agreement, we'll be contributing 3% of all gross revenues to the city in accordance with the HCA. And we're planning on supporting Holyoke Community College's Cannabis Education Center and to prioritize the hiring of students from that program. We're also planning on donating regular to local community nonprofits and organize paid days off for our employees to volunteer in the community at their choice where they choose to volunteer. We're looking to organize some neighborhood and community cleanups, again, hiring locally, enhancing our security and safety outside of the building with external cameras. We've spoken with the Holyoke Police Department, and we're also planning on putting in an additional camera on one of the lamp posts outside on Cabot Street, providing some community bike racks to encourage people to ride their bikes and employees. And then again, hire a diverse workforce and support some organizations which promote diversity and inclusion locally. And that is our presentation. Again, I wanted to thank the committee for your time, and we'd love to hear any questions that you have.
Thanks so much. I will just note that it looks like you submitted your application on March 19th, and that is the final application that we are looking at, correct?
That is correct, Councilor
Okay.
Lisi, yes.
And then the planning department reviewed it on the 27th of April, and then you submitted responses, and it looks like all the questions that they had were responded to and received and accepted in a letter dated on April 30th from the planning staff. So it doesn't seem that there's, thank you. It doesn't seem like there's anything outstanding from the planning department's perspective. The engineer has a letter. The letter here is basically saying that the site is fully developed and minimal site improvements are proposed. If additional improvements such as repaving of the parking lot are proposed in the future, an application for stormwater permit may be required. And there's 3 other issues like this in which if there's new changes or vehicle trips are supposed to be expected to generate, then you may need to do, sorry, it says that when there is agreed with it, that the traffic impact will be minimal, sorry. The offsite parking, this is the one thing that I think we want to hear about actually. So have you identified the lot, you showed it to us, it was circled in blue in the presentation that Mark was going through, but do you have a lease agreement and are those spots designated?
Yes, we do, and yes, they are, and that's why I wanted to make sure the property owner of both the facility and the parking lot across the street was on this call so he could give you that confirmation. And it's written in our lease for the facility that we do have access to spots in that adjacent lot.
Thank you. And were there 10 spots there? Is that what I remember?
Yes. Yes, combined from the spots behind the building and in the adjacent lot. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then finally it says no new utility connections are shown on the plan, but if there are changes, future separation of drain and sewer piping would be required, and roof drains will be required to be connected to a separate storm sewer if and when that happens in the future. So the engineer's letter is pretty satisfactory as well. Other questions from committee members? I see a hand up from Councilor Hernandez and Councilor McGivern. Go ahead, Councilor Hernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to welcome and thank this industry, this applicant, for thinking about Holyoke as their place of establishing this business, this ever-growing industry of cannabis. But I wanted to ask, during your presentation, you mentioned that you have plans to revitalize the Canal area. Is that specifically just for that area, or in the future, can it be expanded to other places in Holyoke of more impoverished needs?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilor Hernandez, and thank you for that. And our plan is to, and we selected Holyoke for a number of reasons, and one of them is because we really feel like there's some potential for Holyoke to come back to, you know, its prior greatness, and we really think that we can, as a successful business in the area, have an impact in trying to help make that happen. Whether it's revitalizing the area or participating in community cleanups in the general vicinity of our property or in the city as a whole. Green Valley Analytics is committed to making sure that, you know, we're going to help all of Holyoke and not just the surrounding property of our area of our building.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Councilor Lisi, and Jonathan, and the other presenters. I just want to commend you for a presentation that we don't often get. You know, I've heard more than one over the years, and when all your questions are answered, when the presentation is done, you know you've got a great and thought out plan. I take it, Jonathan, this is not the first time you've done this.
We have been given plenty of presentations in the last couple of months, Councilor McGivern. Yes.
I think you anticipated well and you present well, and I appreciate it. My questions aren't about, you know, I'm in favor of the permit you need, and think it's a wonderful addition to that area and a wonderful addition to the city. I will correct you though, Holyoke doesn't have to go back to its greatness. We are great. We are legendary in our own time. We just try to keep it. I
stand corrected.
Too many people coming in, if you know what I mean.
I understand. Yes.
Just curious, how many shifts do you operate?
Our initial staffing plan is to operate with a single shift. And once we hit our capacity of sample throughput, which we anticipate will happen very quickly, again, there's a significant backlog with testing in the state, which has kind of been the bottleneck in the industry so far since 2018. We're hoping to reach our capacity initially with our first shift, add a weekend shift, add a second shift, and ultimately kind of emulate what some of the larger labs in Massachusetts are doing, which is running 24/7 to deal with the increase in product and demand for testing with all of these cultivation and manufacturing facilities that we've been seeing come to light in the last couple of years.
That's good news. When Holyoke was in those great years, we were 24/7 and 60,000 population, and this area was full of jobs and full of people working all three shifts. And I think that's I wish you well. And when I ask for shifts, the more shifts, the more employees, which I think is a plus to the city. Yeah. And besides Holyoke, what area do you serve? How far out do you go?
We will serve the entire state of Massachusetts, but part of the reason, again, you know, there are multiple reasons why we selected Holyoke, but one of the other main reasons, other than it being a great city and never losing its greatness, is that there is a large number of cultivators and manufacturers in the western part of the state, where the majority, you know, almost all of the labs are located in the eastern part of the state. So while we will have our services offered to the entire Commonwealth, we plan on having the majority of our clients and customers be in the western part of the state. I live in Easthampton, very close to Holyoke, and we're looking forward to partnering with, you know, some of the largest growers in the state, Trulieve being one of them, you know, hoping to work with some of these large cultivators in and around Holyoke.
And I'm sure if it was Mayor Murphy who negotiated that host agreement, he snuck in the clause though, but Holyoke customers go first.
That's right. Well, we're all about community. I think we participated in a community roundtable with Aaron Vega several weeks ago, or maybe several months ago, actually, where he gathered all of the cannabis businesses in Holyoke to participate in this roundtable. And what we felt and what we saw there was a real sense of community and really helping each other out. Being in this type of situation together where we have a lot of hoops to jump through and a lot of obstacles to overcome. I think we feel, close with some of these other businesses in Holyoke specifically. So you're absolutely right. Holyoke will come first.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Madam Chair.
To the members of the committee, I encourage you to push this forward tonight if at all possible. But thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
I hear you, Councilor Greeny. I will ask you to just hold on for 1 second.
I'll defer to Councilor Greeny.
Thank you. Okay, so Councilor Greeny, Councilor Murphy is allowing you to speak first.
Oh, thank you, Councilor Murphy. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. Jonathan, welcome to Holyoke. Thank you for your presentation. It was very good. I just have two questions. They're actually related and probably questions that the public might want to know. And you'll have to excuse my naivety, but I'd like to know what exactly, number one, will you be testing for? And number two, what happens if the product that you test does not meet legally approved requirements? Thank you.
Yep. And that's not a naive question at all. It's a very specific niche business and industry that requires some, pretty significant knowledge. So I don't consider that a naive question. So we'll take flour, for example. There is a panel of 5 tests that need to be run for your flour samples before they can be legally sold in Massachusetts. Potency is the first one. That's probably the most common one, where you have your total cannabinoid profile. We also will be testing for pesticides analysis. So any kind of pesticides that are used during the growing process to make sure that there's none left over in the product. Our microbials, so testing for bacteria, fungus, mold, mycotoxins, as well as any heavy metals that might be present. So each one of those specific tests requires a specific analytical instrument. So our plan and what we need to have is basically a suite of instruments, each one that will be dedicated to a specific analysis that we will be doing. So the potency will be run on high pressure liquid chromatography. Our pesticides will be run on LCMS triple quad. Again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds here about the actual specifics, but each one of those is required a specific instrument to run that analysis. As far as your question about the failure, there is a specific protocol in 935 CMR 800 with the state that lists the procedure in which we need to follow if there is a particular part of that test that fails. So for example, with the flour analysis, if that flour analysis fails the pesticides screening, what we would do is immediately notify the client that there is a potential issue. And what they can do is they can submit a second sample from the same batch for reanalysis. If that passes, then they need to have that sample sent to a secondary independent testing lab to verify that has again passed. If it does fail, then the client has an option for what we call remediation. And essentially what that means is they can take that flour that had failed the particular screening and they can turn it into an edible or a concentrate and then resubmit that once it's been changed in consistency for secondary analysis.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you very much. And I appreciate your analogy of not getting too far into the weeds.
No pun intended, right?
Thank you, Councilor Greeny. Mark, do you mind stopping the screen share at the moment so we could have full view of the participants? Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, I thought, Jonathan, it was a very good presentation. Mark, I'm going to give you credit because I know you were lining up all that before Jonathan ever had any chance to look at it. Let's go a few things. So you're starting off with 6 employees to start with in the testing facility, if I heard correctly. So 2 of those at least would be Holyoke people. Should I go for 3, Joe? Absolutely. So couple of things that I wonder what are the qualifications? What kind of knowledge does a person have to have? What kind of skills does a person have to have in terms of a testing facility as opposed to some of the other things?
Yeah, that's another great question, Councilor Murphy. The testing lab industry is a little bit of a different animal when you're talking about the retail versus the cultivation versus manufacturing. So it's a very observant question. There is obviously a need for a more specific, specialized candidate to be working in the lab. What we're looking for is, folks that have some experience in the lab. It starts at the top, though. It starts with the lab director or the chief scientific officer. And that person should have analytical chemistry experience, preferably a PhD in analytical chemistry. And then from there, we have our sample analysts, which again should have some chemistry experience, but it's mainly chemistry background.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is, work with Holyoke Community College to try and develop something that we can use to kind of have that be a grassroots movement from Holyoke, train the people in Holyoke, hire them in Holyoke. So, but it is, again, the employment that we have and the employees that we will have will be a little bit of a different animal versus just somebody that you can train at retail facility, for example.
I'm also going to make the assumption, based on all of that information, that the starting salary should be pretty good. And could you, without giving me a quote that you want to pay someone $100,000, you can just start, give me a ballpark as to what somebody applying and becoming one of your hired employees to do some of the analysis, what kind of salary might they be able to expect? And you don't have to. So for the higher position, give me a range.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't need to divulge all our secrets. The lab director, for example, is certainly in the six figures, and folks underneath that would most likely be at an hourly rate, but at a very significant, comfortable living wage. Okay. I think in the $20 an hour range. That's just in anticipation. We've been interviewing lots of candidates and folks over the last couple of months. There is a large interest in wanting to get into the cannabis industry, obviously, but also getting into the independent testing lab, because what these candidates can do is take their chemistry background and get into an industry that they feel is really, growing double digits year over year, okay, which is quite exciting.
Okay, let me do a couple more things, and before I go there and before I forget to do this, Mr. Cunningham, and you just moved on me there, Mr. Cunningham. I don't know how you did that, but first of all, I want to compliment you because your building always looks like it's in great shape, and I want to thank you for maintaining that. So a lot of times we have property owners that let things go, and then we have to do a lot of things. You've done a great job from everything I've seen. I've been in there a few times, getting interviewed by Holyoke Media and Johan, but I want to let you know that you've done a great job with that, and I want to thank you for that. So, and one last thing, and this kind of goes to both of you, because I'm trying to figure out, and maybe I'm just not seeing, but the 10 parking spaces in the back and the ability to load. Are we going through the alley to get there?
It's off-site, as far as I understand.
Oh, James, we can't hear you. If you wanted to take that one.
No, still not hearing you, James. Nope.
Oh boy. I could field this one, James, though, if you're not getting your mic to work. No, nope. Sorry. No, can't hear you. So yeah, it's off-site, Councilor Murphy. That's on the corner of Cabot in Maine.
Yeah, but for your parking, the parking is nearest the alley, correct?
There are several spots. Yes. So when you pull off of Cabot into that alley, and then you take a left right into where that Sally Port is. Yes, yeah. Correct.
But I'm saying that is how you're getting into the Sally Port in the parking.
In the Sally Port, yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. I mean, guys, I know, and I've been there in the winter when parking there is not that easy on Race Street. So. Yeah. I'm glad that they made that arrangement. And again, thank you for your investment, James, thank you for keeping the properties up to snuff, and I just want to thank you all for. And yeah, I agree with Councilman McGivern. I'd be very fine moving this process along. I think this is a field that offers even greater potential in terms of a significant career for many people. So thank you very much. And one last question. If I heard you correctly, you're talking about 24-hour shifts at some point?
Yes, that is the plan. So one of the larger lab operations in the state is currently running 3 shifts, operating that equipment 24/7, which is what it's designed to do. And this recent ordinance changes that the Ordinance Committee passed several weeks ago would give us the ability to operate 24/7. So we're very, very thankful for that.
So would you then expect 24 employees, 18?
No, so no, so that 6 employees would be per shift. So there would only be, there's only so many samples that we can process and so many samples we can run. So that would be per shift.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But I think that does mean if you're running 3 shifts because of 24-hour operations, that you could have up to 18 employees total.
Oh, total. Yes. I apologize. Yes. Total 18. Yes. Plus Mark and I.
20.
Yeah.
So I think we should allow the public to speak then, given that it's a public hearing. Is there anyone here, a member of the public, who would like to speak in favor or against this application? I don't see any hands, and I'm just checking in the other room here. It doesn't look like it to me. Okay, there's a motion to close the public hearing is in order.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moves.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just to let you know that Councilor Bacon has joined the meeting.
Thank you so
I think
much.
she can see me,
Oh, no, well, sometimes she can.
but
because,
thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
yes.
Councilor Bacon is part of the committee from Ward 5, representing Ward 5 and joining us now. So where's Jonathan? Jonathan, you anticipated our conditions very well. I saw them built into the slide presentation, but as a formality, we should read the conditions that we have attached to all applications. The first is that the owner of the building always pay a commercial property tax rate to the extent allowed by federal, state, and local laws for the duration of the special permit. 2, that the business retain a minimum of 30% Holyoke residents for non-security jobs. That hiring preference be given to security personnel that are retired Holyoke police or are a retired member of another police department who now lives in the city of Holyoke. 4, that no consumption of marijuana shall be allowed on site. 5, that there shall be no deliveries from the site to individual homes, residences, or people. And then 6, that the hours of operation reflect the city ordinances. Okay. Yes. So if there's no objections to those 6 conditions, I'd entertain a motion that we approve this special permit as amended.
So moved.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this is forwarded to the full city council on next Tuesday's meeting, and we'll have a final determination there.
Wonderful. And if I could just add one more thing, Councilor Lisi,
Sure.
Part of the reason why our presentation tonight and our application was so complete, and I appreciate the compliments that were given. It had a lot to do with the pre-application meetings, the planning board, John Dijak, Aaron Vega, Jeffrey Anderson Burgos. The whole city of Holyoke has been really cheering for us and helping, and I think that pre-application meeting really went a long way to make sure that we had all of our ducks in a row. It does a couple of things, but it really streamlines this process for the applicants. So it really means a lot to us, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for that feedback, because now it is a formal part of our ordinance and application process here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion now to go to item number 3, which is our final public hearing for the evening.
All right. Thank you. Make a motion to go to item 3 and open up.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
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 This is a special permit application of Mass Cannabis Growers Cooperative LLC for a marijuana manufacturing establishment at 11 Jackson Street. This is a cultivation facility. Is the applicant with us this evening, or somebody representing the applicant?
Yes, hello, I'm Brandon Gates, the executive director, chairman of the board, and I guess closest thing to what would be an owner of the Mass Cannabis Growers Cooperative. I am joined here by our board of directors, David Major, our CTO and president, David Jackson, our COO, Kyle Sosaby, who is a lawyer that's been working with us, and Rick Bayer, who is in charge of our design and site plans and organizing our architectural needs for the project. And so thank you all for joining me here this evening from my company, and thank you from the City Council for joining us.
Great. And do you have a presentation for us as well?
Yeah, as seems to be the custom, I didn't realize that that was part of the layout for the evening, but I have queued one up as seeing it being necessary. So I will.
It doesn't have to be very in depth, but we are interested in the building and the way you're working with the building.
Totally. Yeah. Let me make sure that I am able to do screen sharing here. I'm not the best at computers. Let's see. Yep. So is everybody seeing what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Great. So we are the Mass Cannabis Growers Cooperative. Our model is very unique and brand new in that we had little template to go off of throughout the world or cannabis industry. We are brand new in that we create a space for micro applicants and or very small farmers and individuals to create compliant products underneath our roof, as well as giving an opportunity for myself and other members of the board to become recreational farmers. Under a new provision with the state of Massachusetts, we are able to be a craft cooperative underneath 935 CMR 500. Provides provisions for a craft cooperative to be able to cultivate marijuana both indoors and outdoors throughout multiple locations underneath one single license. So we intend to have multiple locations throughout the state of Massachusetts, serving every community, creating a farm-to-table environment and creating giving local opportunities to mom-and-pop farmers. We can do up to 100,000 square feet of canopy collectively throughout the state. This first facility should house up to 15,000 square feet. We currently are applying for a tier 3 cultivation permit with the state for up to 15,000 square feet. I believe that we should have about 12,000 of that filled within the building of 22,000 square feet. We are able to harvest, both dry, cure, and package said marijuana. We can make extracts, tinctures, oils, concentrates, and edibles. We can brand and sell our licensed marijuana to establishment retailers within Massachusetts, but we cannot sell directly to consumers. We at no point will be creating a retail environment or having a storefront. We will be selling directly to dispensaries and never to consumers themselves. Craft marijuana facilities have to be at least 250 feet away from schools. Our building is about 270 feet away from the nearest school. We can't have any plants visible from any public ways or any people nearby. We must have secured and locked perimeters, a security entry and exit design, including fingerprint face recognition or iris recognition technology, 24/7 recording, security cameras. This was detailed in much greater length with the chief of police with his help to develop our security plan. Our entry is permitted only to Massachusetts residents who are 21 years or older and who can pass a core background check. And also, we can only exist with permission from the town or community that we exist within by navigating a host community agreement, which we have here with the town of Holyoke. Other cooperatives that have existed throughout other industries that give a better idea of how we will function are mostly within the agricultural or farming industry, with Land O'Lakes, Blue Diamond Growers for almonds, and Ocean Spray Cranberry Juice, which we actually have the opportunity to use their operating agreement. So we create an environment to create to take a consortium of small producers products and give one stream of revenue from our distribution relationships with dispensaries. Unlike other cannabis businesses, we have to operate much different. We have to adhere to the International Cooperative Alliance of Principles for all cooperative organizations, whether it be solar, agricultural, or any other type of industry. We have to have voluntary and open membership. We have to have democratic member control over everything. We have to have member economic participation. We have to function with full autonomy and independence. We have to offer education, training, and information to all of our members and any potential employees. We have to provide cooperation to other cooperatives within the state and help ensure that anything that we've learned can be used for other cooperative models. I'm actually in talks with Axel Burnaby, who's working with Governor Cuomo and recreational rollout in New York State. And our exact cooperative model is being used for their cooperative model and will be cited for that in New York State. So that's one of our means of providing anything that we can know to create a template for anyone else who wants to create a cooperative throughout the United States or world. We have ultimate concern for our community. Our first location, as I said, is 22,000 square feet that we have option to lease at 11 Jackson Street here in Holyoke, Massachusetts. This is an overview of the building, its proximity to our school, our nearest school, our proximity to the canals. We're right on the corner of Jackson and Sumner. We will eventually be including the Sumner Street property, which is available for us to option to lease from the same owner of the 11 Jackson Street property, in a whole second presentation and complete different application at a future date. This is a representation of what we call a grow pod. Each member can buy 500 square feet of legal gardening space, typically partitioned into what you see here, what we call a grow pod, which is about 350 or 367 square feet of flowering area, where marijuana will spend most of its growing life under 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of light after spending time in the vegetation room in front of the area here. Each member will have access to our clone library and areas for trimming and packaging cannabis that they produce within each grow pod. Each grow pod, like I said, is 500 square feet, and it's the smallest denomination that a member can buy in and own. This is a layout that's less in depth than what you probably have presented to you through the clerk's office for our site plan. This is what our pods will look like throughout the building once everything has been cleared. We have trimming areas here that members will use in cooperation so that they have enough space to trim, with their harvest being stifled throughout the building. So everyone will be on a relative schedule to know when they can harvest and when they can expect to trim the harvest and get it ready for sale. And it'll be held here within the building, detailed again in our security plan. There will be extra security measures, as you can see, or as you might be able to anticipate throughout our building. Each individual room needs to have a security camera, and each individual pod needs to have its own entry software and capabilities to keep areas of the building separate from members and from the outside public. So our security needs are a bit more complex, understandably so, for providing autonomy and safety of intellectual property and physical property within the building from members. These are pictures of genetic specimens that will be available for members in our clone library. Our clone library will have been reviewed, and efficacy of individual strains and desirability for dispensaries and site consumers will be agreed upon. So everything that a consumer or everything that a member produces will already have a desired demand and or agreed upon sales relationship. So quotas will be met. People will be growing entirely from a controlled genetic environment presented by the cooperative. This is testing data representing the care and expertise taken in creating the menu that's available to our members. Much of it was created by me and other legacy producers and farmers who have taken time to creating a menu that provides little to no terpene overlap, so that we know that we're creating specific products and specific flower specimens that are unique to each other and not available in Massachusetts currently, and not being currently provided by other cultivators. Our menu and our small batch process and farm to table local products is one that we think will become niche and desirable when the cannabis market becomes international and there's a greater demand for locally produced products.
I'm going to ask you to go off script a little bit, just because I think that this is a new sort of design and business relationship.
Right.
So, so the way that I understand like Cabot or Ocean Spray working is that they collect product from multiple farms or growers, and then they are all processing that material under one label.
Right.
And so how it seems here that you're still allowing multiple craft labels or brands to work independently under one roof. So can you just speak to that dynamic a little bit?
So I'm hoping that the Massachusetts Cannabis Growers Cooperative can function like a Kellogg's or like a Mars candy bar and be like a parent label, something that will appear on the back of a package and allow individual members to retain any intellectual property, branding knowledge, or ideas that they've developed prior to buying into my cooperative and becoming a recreational producer, that they may have either learned from the legacy market or have data supporting the legacy market that they want to be able to retain as they make this transition into becoming a recreational producer. So unlike Cabot or Ocean Spray Cranberry Juice, which is able to have farms on individual properties throughout individual communities throughout the state, everyone has to exist within one host community agreement and underneath one roof and one compliance package and one pre-negotiated relationship with a dispensary. So each individual pod is much like an autonomous farm functioning within one more cohesive environment. And until it becomes too complex and problematic, I want individuals to be able to retain their individual names and property.
So underneath the roof at 11 Jackson, there's going to be the 26 grow pods and then space also for cultivation and processing?
Just cultivation, no processing.
No processing.
Cultivation,
okay.
Packaging, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you think the 500 square feet is enough for a label to maintain itself?
I do, yeah. Based on data that we've accrued from home environments and from what members are able to produce in their own settings, 500 square feet is quite a bit. It's projected to produce up to about $120,000 per pod per member before expenses. I'll get to that actual schematic here. I think this next one here, the value proposition. But yeah, the gross revenues per pod are about $120,000 for the production of flower. So it is enough to produce a living for someone who can afford the buy-in of about $10,000 to own a 500 square foot pod. And this $10,000 is just like a stock. It's a transferable option of ownership for 500 square feet of canopy. It doesn't include build out. It doesn't include lights. It doesn't include staffing. It doesn't include equipment. It doesn't include a multitude of costs that each individual member should be familiar with outfitting. Our model is meant for someone who understands the complexity and bureaucratic processes for creating a recreational grow, but was barred to entry for any variety of reasons, whether it be lack of infrastructure or mostly just financial. We hope to just create a much lower financial barrier for the average person to become a recreational farmer.
That's great, because I think it opens up a lot more opportunities for equity in the market if the cost of setting up is reduced. However, I'm going to ask this question. So if it's just grow and not cultivation, how do you get your product out to the market? How do one of your craft growers, because I understand cultivation to literally be plucking the flowers.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So we would just be creating dried and cured cannabis flower and trim, and that trim can be sold to extract manufacturers until we're able to open a second facility that will have extraction and edible creation within it. We have another building that we're looking at in Springfield that we're negotiating a host community agreement for, that would be for exactly that. So we would have extraction and edible creation at another facility, creating a circular loop for all of the biomass that we create.
Okay, all right. Any other highlights in the presentation then?
I guess and our board of directors here, including myself, my mother and my wife, creating much of what I like to see throughout the cooperative, like an actual real mom and pop feel where the average person can get in and create their own cannabis business. One of the most important members of our advisory board is a woman, Bobby Paley, who is involved with a multitude of successful cannabis industry acquisitions, ventures, and new things here in New England, who really keeps us at task and provides a greater avenue for investment and potential investment pools for members to pool upon. So we really have quite a heavy hitter mixed in with our very mom and pop local grassroots pulled up by the bootstraps team that I tout and I'm very proud of. So I want to say that while we do have something brand new and we have something that we have little to use a template for, we have the best team possible, and we have as much knowledgeable individual as we need to make sure that this happens, that Holyoke can have a brand new kind of cannabis inclusion model.
Great. So any questions from committee members based on the presentation that we're seeing here, or the new model that we're looking at for this Grow Cooperative? Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I met with this group, and I was pretty impressed with what they talked about. So let me ask a few questions here. So the $10,000, as I understand it, one time, and then basically part of their revenue comes from working with you to get the product out to manufacturers. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay. And I think we were talking, was it 20 pods or 25 pods? Do you remember how many
As of right now, we have 27 pods in the current building.
Okay. And are they being built as you get the 10,000, or are they already built and then you're hoping to get 10,000 for each one?
They're by and large built out as member dues are received.
Okay.
And then individual security cameras will be tied into a central network. Irrigation equipment will be tied into a central network. So a central network, a backbone, say, or like a rib cage of necessary facilities will be spread throughout, well, whether it be electrical hookups, irrigational hookups, security camera hookups. But no actual walls will be erected and no partition spaces will be erected until a member has committed and signed on and provided preliminary capital.
Okay. So, and if I'm a member and I want to go in at 2 a.m, I'm assuming I have some kind of passcode to get in the main door plus a passcode to get into my pod, right?
You do, yes. We'll definitely be operating all shifts, and we want to allow someone to be able to garden at 2 a.m, most definitely. So they would have an individual passcode and key card to get in through the main door, and then a key card to get into only their space and anything that they needed ancillary to their space.
Okay. And then one other concern, and I expressed it because we got a basketball court, playground, handball court there, and one of my concerns was that the entrance not be so visible to them. And I know we didn't really come to a conclusion. So are we looking at an entrance on Jackson Street, or are we looking at an entrance off the alley?
We're looking at an entrance either on Sumner or on Jackson Street, not on the alley.
Okay.
The entrance that we may have used when escorting you through the building is not the one that we'll be using in the future.
That is not going to be okay. And I think that's important. And I will say, I already talked to them about potentially sponsoring. One of the things that Case does, and I think I would love to see you do this, is sponsoring movies that we flash off your wall, and try to bring the community to the playground. And I know you indicated there would be some interest in that, so I would love to be able to work with you on that as you move along. I think it's an interesting concept. I certainly think it does potentially open a market for people who are not well off financially or not extremely well off financially. And it's an interesting concept. I don't see any particular danger. The area right now is somewhat in need of some activity. Obviously, we got the Jackson Sewer project, which is enough activity to delay everything else. But it's an interesting concept, and they've been upfront with me as Ward 2 counselor, and I appreciate that. And I know when I went there, they were already meeting with some ex-Holyoke police officers in terms of how they were going to be able to monitor security. And I know they've met with the chief as well. So it's an interesting concept. I think I'm going to be okay with it, and I'll just listen to other thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Hernandez, did you have your hand up?
I did, and I know that Councilor Murphy went a little bit into the question that I wanted to ask, but my question is, I hear that this is going to be, it's a fantastic, thank you for the presentation, first of all, and welcome, and thank you for choosing our city, and for this wonderful presentation. But I wanted to ask, I hear that this is, like a big co-op, and it's almost like growing under this one bigger, right, arm. And so for the members, what's the criteria like for a member to qualify, besides the $10,000, to qualify to be part of this whole co-op and to be accepted? How does that look for them?
Thank you, Libby. Yeah, that's very pertinent. So first and foremost, a member must truly be a Massachusetts resident. They must have lived here for at least a year and can prove for all necessary circumstances that they truly are from Massachusetts. They cannot be a felon at this point. They must be able to pass a Corey background check. I would like to have that changed, and I would like to assume that marijuana felonies and other nonviolent felonies won't bar our members in the future. I think that everyone disenfranchised and affected by the war on drugs should be able to be a recreational cultivator. But as to date, everyone must pass a Corey background check. So most importantly, everyone must really truly be small and from here. They cannot be out of state. They cannot be backed by a larger cannabis corporation. They must be a micro business.
Thank you so much. This reminds me of like we have like this big garden in one of the
Just like that. Yeah.
housing authority developments, and everybody had like a little piece of land, and everyone grew there, and it just reminds me, takes me back to that bigger like sense of community and creating these spaces for progress and advancement, and giving that opportunity to the smaller person, but it's wonderful, and thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and thank you. I'm glad that you talked about community. That's a culture that the cannabis industry is really asking for. Is a community aspect. The circular ability for cannabis to provide for everyone in the community, whether it be through making of uniforms for the employees, or teas or tinctures created from the biomass, or edibles created from the biomass, or couriers or security plan providers. It's just it's an in-house place for everyone to find a home in the cannabis industry and receive 80% of the profits of everything they produce.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, so going into the review from the planning department, it seems that we want to know whether the plans submitted to the clerk on February 22nd of this year are considered final.
February 22nd sounds a bit far back. I know that we just had a new amendment of plans received on May 13th, whether it comes to the site plans and the as-built existing plans. But I do believe the larger packet of information that you should be reviewing is from February, yes.
Right, so you submitted that in February, and then there was a response from the planning department on the 23rd of April, and then you responded again, and now we're looking at this letter on the 20th.
Right, yes.
Okay,
And then,
so
I do believe we do have a response packet. Yeah, okay, from April 27th. Yes, okay. And then on this is the May 13th response. Assuming that everyone has had this circulated.
Brandon, if you'd like, I can address that question.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Mayor, hi. They are not the final plans. The planning board asked for sealed plans, which we have provided, and the proposed plans are schematic and in development.
okay.
But they're schematic and sealed.
Okay, so it seems that there are some additional questions in the last review of the responses that you submitted. So the last letter that I have here is dated May 21st. Have you seen a copy of this letter from the planning department dated May 21st?
Yes, yeah. That seems right.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through these. It seems like you're making some progress and you are moving ahead, but have you provided a copy of the signed lease?
So, well, with our option to lease, it's unique in that we don't have to execute it or start paying rent on the building until we've received provisional licensing from the state. So while it is signed from the owner of the building itself, we won't actually sign the lease and execute it and start paying on the building until we receive provisional licensing potentially next month from the CCC.
Okay.
So it serves as an option and holds that lease available for us and only us, and takes the building off the market and acts in all necessary forms like a signed lease, but much cheaper and less expensive for someone more grassroots like myself who can't afford $10,000 a month while they wait in limbo. So that will be signed and executed and submitted as soon as we receive provisional licensing and can receive those member dues from potential members and execute agreements and get the capital necessary.
It seems that in relation to page 35, there was a typo there about the member-owned grow pods.
Right.
And did you submit something with that amendment, with an amendment that fixes that typo so that it's updated?
Yes, yeah. We have in both red and black highlights here our responses to the city, to the planning department that includes that typo that we had cleared up in our site review meeting. But I believe, assuming that the clerk's office has distributed this packet correctly, that my response or our team's response is here for that.
So I don't have anything beyond the planning response on the 20th. So I don't know if you've submitted something since the 20th.
What I'm looking at here, no, not since the 20th. Sorry, let me find what you're looking for here. David, do you know the typo that she refers to?
No, and I'm not aware of anything we've received after the 20th.
Right. So we are all looking at the planning review dated the 20th, and it seems that there's still some outstanding issues, even after the amendments that you have filed on the, I don't know what date this is here.
I said, our attorney is here also. Kyle, are you aware of any new documentation post May 20th?
I'm actually not in receipt of the May 20th letter from the planning board. We had submitted a written response to the planning board's letter from April
23rd.
23rd, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, on May 13th, and then it was received by your offices on May 13th, and that's the last documentation that we have.
Right. So there's a planning review early on of your initial submission. Then you submitted amendments and updates to respond to their initial letter. And now this is the review of your amendments. And it seems that there's still just a handful of items that are outstanding. You know, we don't have to address them if they don't seem, you know, very significant, but we do need to receive the documentation that talks about how they will be addressed, or we could condition it in the end. But let's just go through it. So it seems that there's a typo on page 35 related to, it says 26,500 square feet of member-owned grow pods. And
Yes,
on another page,
we have addressed this in the document that we sent in. What it said was that there were 26 500 square foot pods, not that there were 26,000 square feet of pods. There were 26 500 square foot pods, and we did address that in well, also in person with Jeff, and let's see where else it is.
so I'm just gonna out of you know, efficiency, I'm just going to keep moving. So that needs to be addressed in a concrete way. It seems that there was a request to clarify which activities will actually be occurring on the site, as opposed to which activities may occur on the site. And the planning response on 520 is asking that the applicant provide an updated submittal reflecting these corrections. Let's see, number of responses have been accepted. Let's see, 520. Could the applicant please clarify if there will be a generator on the site, and if so, where will it be located in the plans?
So I'm sorry. I feel that we did write responses to these, and they were incorporated into the supplement that we first presented and which your offices received on May 13th. So, by the way, we're not going to have a generator. That's really the answer to that. But we did codify that in the document that we sent, where we took the comments we got actually your letter, and we in red responded. Your letter of April 27th.
Right, so this is now a review of those amendments submitted on April 27th. So this is dated the 21st of May, and it is a review of what you submitted on the 27th of April. And it seems that there are still a number of items that are outstanding.
Okay.
I do want to recognize Councillor Bacon. You had your hand up for a moment.
Well, I did, because I was looking at the response relative to the 500 square foot each, which the planning folks acknowledged that the applicant had stated to correct that, but then it looks like they were looking again for the applicant to provide an updated submittal after they had responded clarifying it.
I do see the document now.
Seems it's item 3. It seems a little circular, but that's what it says.
Right. I'm just now locating this document. I thought it was a reiteration of a prior document. I didn't realize that it required. So I'm sorry for our ignorance on this.
No, that's okay. It just seems that you know, we want to make sure that you understand what's in the comments here from the 20th.
So it appears that it was answered, but it appears they want it clarified in writing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say it's probably in order to continue the public hearing, because we will need to receive new submission of documents, and therefore we need to keep the hearing open in order to receive those documents. In the same way that you submitted the response on the 27th to the clerk, sure. And then it was then circulated to the planning department. It would be a similar sort of situation here, where you have to address these last few outstanding issues, document it, and make it part of the complete application submission.
Okay, not at all an issue. I'm sorry that we neglected to do that in the past couple of days.
That's okay. Does anyone want to ask any other questions before we continue the public hearing? We should allow the public, members of the public, to speak for or against this proposal if there are any members who wish to be recognized. I'm not seeing any hands on the screen or in the attendees. So I would say a motion is in order then to continue to a date certain.
So moved.
The motion has been made and seconded to continue the public hearing to, I would say, the 8th at 6:30. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So this public hearing is now continued to the 8th at 6:30 p.m. We'll just need to get it. You know, I'm thinking we might not actually be able to do it on the 8th, because you would need to submit the plans. Sorry, this is why I'm getting tripped up a little bit. They need to be submitted to the clerk for our next city council meeting, and then they would be sent over.
Counselor, this is Rick Bayer. The issues that you enumerated, there was a document prepared that addressed each of those, and several other documents at the planning board. It appears to me that they were not submitted properly. But I believe those documents exist and can be submitted probably tomorrow. That address these issues. The generator, the typo on page 35 to clarify the activities. Those things were addressed in a document. Apparently it wasn't submitted. Just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, and so you're in receipt of the letter from the planning department that's dated the 21st of May.
Yes, that's the document that we addressed that I'm speaking of that probably didn't get submitted.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and set it for the 8th then at 6:30, assuming that you have responded and submitted something along the way, and we'll just make sure we have it. If we are not in receipt of them properly for the 8th, we would continue it again to 2 weeks following that.
Do you know a deadline of submittal to qualify for the meeting on the 8th?
Well, it would be Thursday, wouldn't it?
Right, yes, it would be this Thursday.
Thank you.
All right, so this meeting is continued to the.
Can I ask a question on that? You're getting me. I'm a little confused here now. So let me. So they're trying to answer the concerns that the planning board has, correct? That's what we're looking to do.
Yeah.
And so they're going to submit. I assume they're going to submit their answers to the planning board's response, and then
it's not the planning board, it's the planning department.
All right, planning department's response, and then the planning department's response or receipt of that response, they will let us know that they've gotten that, right?
Yes, but
So why does it have to go on our agenda on the 1st? We've got these documents. We're trying to get answers to these documents. It's already here.
Because all the documents that all the different departments receive come through the clerk's office. The responses cannot go directly to planning or to engineering, because then we have different documents and we don't know which documents we're looking at, which ones we're talking about. So everything has to be received through the clerk's office first. The clerk then disseminates them to the relevant departments for review. And then in this case, we're looking for the planning department's review, the engineer's review of whatever is submitted.
I'm also confused. I'm looking at the document that was received that says by the clerk's office on May 13th. That's the stamp that's on here.
Right. And the planning department has reviewed that submission that came in on the 13th.
Okay.
And has further questions still.
Okay.
So very much the same to our response to this. We should have produced another one, and it seems like we have, but didn't submit it properly through the right channels. So a very similar response, but yet another one.
Yeah, and it looks like what they're really looking for is that these few last outstanding things are documented in some way. Okay. That your responses are documented, and it becomes a complete package.
Sure.
All right. So we are all set here for the public hearing to be continued until the 8th at 6:30 p.m. And yes, we want to have, you all want to submit your responses by Thursday. Before that even, no, by Thursday, so that they can be received by the clerk and then sent over to the planning department.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to move on in our agenda then to item number, I believe it's 4.
Make a motion to take out item number 4 from the table.
Motion has been made and seconded to take up item number 4 from the table. This is.
Did we actually vote to close and set up? I didn't, maybe I missed it. I didn't hear us actually vote to close the public hearing and set the next date as June 8th.
It was a continuation. It was a continuation. We can vote again. So the motion was made and seconded to continue until June 8th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure we had voted to do that. Maybe I missed it.
You were right.
I think we did vote on it, but then the questions came through again. So anyhow, item number 4 is filed by Councilor Murphy, that the City Council consider adopting a wage theft ordinance for all contractors doing projects for the city or receiving special tax incentives by the city, similar to Easthampton and Springfield, with the following purposes: prevent misclassification of employees as independent contractors, assure that employees are paying all payroll taxes and workers' compensation premiums, comply with state laws governing the payment of prevailing wages, assure that contractors provide opportunities for Holyoke residents, veterans, people of color, and women. Okay, so this is before us. Councilor Murphy, as the maker, I will turn it over to you. We do also have a number of guests here with us from various labor unions, as far as I understand.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm filing this, and I know you have also tried to file this on other occasions. And to me, it's just trying to make sure that 2 things happen. Number 1, all contractors play on a level field, that we're not having an advantage by not following all the laws and regulations. And number 2, make sure that all employees are treated with respect and according to the law. And we've got some information, and I'll just read the first paragraph as to why wage theft ordinance are needed. And and I'm going to read one paragraph, if I may, and it's wage theft is a huge problem in the construction industry. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office issued a report on Labor Day in 2020, citing that during this past fiscal year, 2020, the Fair Labor Division required employers to pay nearly $6.7 million in restitution and $5.7 million in penalties, and more than 12,939 workers were assisted as the result of the AG's office action. And I mean, I've had people tell me, and I won't mention any particular places, but I've had people tell me that they ended up not getting time off. They were not getting overtime. There was a number of issues that were there. And then the other factor would be when someone's going out to bid, if a contractor is not following all those rules, obviously they have potential expenses that they're not incurring, and that gives them an advantage over the contractors that are following all the rules and all living up to all the regulations. So I just want to make sure that all workers are treated correctly. And when we're providing tax incentives, other contracts to contractors, that they're living up to what they are expected to do, and that is to treat all of their employees correctly according to the law, and make sure that we're not taking advantage of people who may not have the background to file complaints.
Right, and then I think also, there's rules out there for how workers need to be compensated. And I think in this case, as the city that is going to be contracting with folks, we want to make sure that those folks that we contract with are playing by the rules, and that we're not subjecting anyone to any loss of wages. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. Through the chair to the maker. I just have a question. So if somebody is legitimately an independent contractor, would they still be able to participate in the contract? Because I know there's certain rules under which a person really is an independent contractor, and others where they're really not.
As I understand it, the main contractor and the subsidiary contractors, as long as they have lived up to the Fair Labor Division, Fair Labor standards that we have in the state, they would all be fine. If they go into violation, if, for example, they are not paying workers' compensation, if they're not paying taxes, if they're not withholding taxes and paying other kind of ways, then they would be subject to review and potentially no longer able to submit bid proposals to get contracts from, in this case, from Holyoke, but in other cases from other towns. Any independent contractor, as I understand it, that is following all the regulations would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
And I know there are people here that are much more expertise than me on this, and if I'm wrong, the goal of this is just to make sure that we are all playing on the same field, and we're not allowing, and then in effect providing advantage to someone who is a contractor who, for whatever reason, is not doing, or hiring subcontractors who are not doing what they are obligated to do.
Should we turn it over to Lisa Clausen and Charlie Payne, perhaps, for an overview of the wage theft issue, and see if we want to go through one of the templates that they provided for ordinance language?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we allow Ms. Clausen to speak, or Mr. Payne.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Charlie, Lisa, either of you want to take a?
Lisa, why don't you take up?
Sure, sure. Thank you, Mayor Murphy, and thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate you taking up, considering this issue and taking up this issue. Unfortunately, in the construction industry, wage theft is a epidemic problem because of low bids. Some contractors try to get an even lower bid by cheating and not paying their workers properly, sometimes not paying them at all. Very frequently, this happens with Latinx workers. But when they do this, they're also cheating through not paying taxes on those workers, not paying payroll taxes, not paying workers' compensation. And when workers get injured, they're often left to their own devices and left to, Mass Health for covering that. So it's a problem that affects a number of people, it particularly where tax dollars are at play for city contracts, or if tax relief has been given to a private project, what we're asking to be considered is having a higher standard, just reiterating in the contract that any contractor working on this project would have to play by the rules. It would say that any contractor that's had a very recent finding of wage theft would not be allowed to bid on the job. There are hundreds and hundreds of contractors in an area who can bid, and this would say contractors that have had a recent violation would not be eligible. And then it would basically, what it would do is have repercussions in the ordinance is what we'd recommend, so that if cheating is found to happen on a project that had taxpayer funds on it, that there is a way that the city can go after and address that issue. So if it's a contract, to cite them to not be able to get future contracts. If it's a tax relief project where tax relief was given to a developer, that perhaps some of that tax relief is paid back to the town as a result. We also, as we've worked on these ordinances in some other surrounding communities, we have worked with those towns to advantage local residents and veterans, and also people of color and women who are often underrepresented in construction, to ensure that there are job opportunities that are going fairly out. And so those are components that we ask the council to consider as well, and that have been similarly done in Springfield and Easthampton and in other communities around here. So, as the mayor said, it's about leveling the playing field. It's about protecting workers and also making sure that a legitimate business, a legitimate independent contractor, subcontractor, is not bidding against someone who's cheating workers, and so not having an unfair bid then, because they're bidding where they're putting in paying workers, paying payroll taxes and insurance, and someone else is bidding without paying that. So that's in essence what it is. I know Charlie can speak more to it. We also have a couple of residents I know on the line who are also interested in speaking in favor of it.
Councilor Lisi, can you just clarify for the people who are watching where these folks are from?
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Lisa, can you give your title and address?
Sorry about that. So Lisa Clausen, I live in Northampton. I work in Springfield for the Carpenters Union, and we represent members who are across Western Mass, so including many who live in Holyoke.
Thank you.
And I'm Charlie Payne. I was born in Holyoke. I live in Chicopee. I'm a business agent for the Carpenters Union, and I represent 31 families at this point that live in the city of Holyoke. And I would like to follow up with a few comments from Lisa's overview, if you would allow it.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So as the mayor stated, there was the amount of monies that the Attorney General got back last year. I know from personal experience that probably 1 out of 4 cases that I've referred to him actually get investigated, or we have enough proof. So the problem is way bigger than we see. And Lisa is right. I mean, Holyoke is a primarily Latin city, and those are the major victims of this wage theft. The schemes are really belligerent sometimes with direct paying you at the end of a job to maybe we'll pay you half of what you're owed. And I had a case where I made referrals on, and it ended up in $469,000 in restitution and about 14 projects, 2 of which were in the city of Holyoke, prevailing wage projects. And it was a scheme that the contractor had to not fund the pension plans of the workers. He put in false certified payroll saying he was putting anywhere from $10 to $15 an hour into these workers' accounts, and he never made the payments. And it was $521,000 in civil penalties. I don't believe any of that's been paid. And in the 6 years that I've been doing this job, I'm over $700,000 in restitution. And that's not my primary job, enforcement. That's me doing it for people to come to me that want to get paid. If people are not members of ours and they want to get paid, we recently had a wage theft case in West Springfield with 3 city residents from Holyoke that were supposedly independent contractors. The person that they work for, who was a 4th tier subcontractor, just told them flat out, I'm not going to pay you. So once we called the general contractor, they put pressure all the way down the line. But we're talking about grocery money for these folks. We're not talking about money to go on vacation. These people really needed, this was just day-to-day survival money. And it's so important that we don't just keep feeding the same contractors who do this over and over again, because with a wink and a nod, they know that they look at the prices that they're getting, and this is 1/3 less than what it should be. On a $100,000 contract, I've saved $33,000. I know they can't do it for that, not legitimately, but I got away with it. And really, we asked the city of Springfield to pass this. They realized how important it is, and I'd ask you to consider the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. So since we are starting to hear from members of the public that have come to weigh in on this issue, maybe we start there and then we do a deeper dive into the ordinance language.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So are there other members from different locals here to speak about this issue? If you're in the participants, yes, there's somebody here also. So there's Amy Calandralis, Scott Goulding. So there's a couple people. Where is Jeffrey? Oh, and Patrick Burke. Patrick, you're here with us. So why don't you go ahead, and I think we'll have Jeffrey bring over those other folks.
Are we going to have time for the speakers, a time amount?
I mean, it's not a public hearing, so I think.
Well, I know, but
we could do like 2 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure. I can't do my presentation for the business, and I want to. I was here for all that. It was very interesting. So my name's Patrick Burke.
Address for the record.
Work for United Auto Workers Local 2322, whose office is based in Holyoke. At oh my gosh.
Open Square.
Yeah, Open Square. Yeah, thank you. Been there for years. And I live at 43 Pearl Street in Holyoke. And yeah, I've been supportive of some of these other wage theft ordinances with my local and with the Western Massachusetts Area Labor Federation. Yeah, I mean, there are, wage theft, more wages are stolen than, any other kind of crime, larceny, burglary. So wage theft has a huge impact, and the folks who are impacted by it are usually the people who have the least ability to afford it, and it hurts everyone. It doesn't just hurt the folks who are stolen from. It hurts the businesses, the community, and in my line of work, our union is not in the construction trades, but I support workers who do new organizing and again, there are so many cases where someone is not getting paid what's owed to them. Like, in most businesses, if there's in a contract, you're not getting paid, you can go to court and you can pursue that very easily. The resources just aren't there for most folks who find themselves to be, I didn't get paid my full hours, I didn't get overtime, I didn't get to, I didn't earn my sick time was disappeared. So, I think this is just really common sense, and this adds another way to really ensure that, rather than have to, have people file lots and lots of complaints, that we're trying to get it, do the end run and really say, look, our communities want to have common sense ordinances in place that really take the high road and support workers' rights and protecting the broader community. So that's why I'm here, and I'm again really supportive of my colleagues and some of the folks who've been working on this.
Thank you, Patrick. That's just about 2 minutes. We'll go to Councilor Bacon. Is your hand up, or shall I go to the other speakers first?
Yes, and I just want to put the question out there, but the other speakers certainly can go first. But I just want to understand, if we have the state labor laws and the people could file an unfair labor complaint, how our ordinance would fit with the current state law. Or it feels redundant, but maybe there's something different that I'm not seeing yet. Thank you. Just for when everybody gets done. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll just go in order on my screen. So I have Amy Calandrala there.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Amy Calandrala. I live at 75 Merrick Avenue in Holyoke, and I'm an operating engineer. I run heavy equipment for Local 98 is my union, International Union Operating Engineers, and right now I'm digging holes on 391, replacing a bunch of the signs out there. And I just wanted to speak a little from a worker's perspective, because honestly, when I started hearing about wage theft, when I started in construction, I was like, how is that even a thing? Like, what is that? Because I used to be a social service worker, and I would just get the same $850 every 2 weeks. So I'm like, if there was $800, I would know. And then I would just talk to my boss. Like, I don't understand. So as a wage earner, and I guess, I don't know, I was thinking to just ask the counselors, because if you've had wage earning jobs before, where like it's different, because every hour you work, you're earning a certain amount of money, and then you're going home with the amount of pay that's reflecting. It's a different, I've worked on both sides of it, and it just feels different to like be paid for the hours that you've been at work, or to not be paid in that way. I haven't ever experienced wage theft before, but I know what it's like to have to look at my paycheck, because my pay is different every week. So that's something that's a little bit different than being on salary, depending on the number of hours you've worked, or the amount of overtime, or even like what piece of equipment that I'm running. My wage will be different. So I got to look at my paycheck every week to make sure that I've been paid for every hour that I work. And in terms, this answers a little bit of what the counselor asked about, sort of why aren't these things resolved with the like procedures that are in the state? For example, last year, because of it was a clerical error. It wasn't necessarily wage theft, but I got $0 in my paycheck after 2 weeks. No, it was my weekly work, and I'd worked something like 55 or 60 hours for that week, and I got a goose egg. And so here I am working on a paving crew. So I'm working from 6 a.m. until like 5 or 6 at night.
And Amy, we're at 30 seconds for the public to speak here.
Okay, sure. So basically, I'm kind of making phone calls, not to that company, because they outsource their payroll to another company that's based in Georgia. So I'm calling these random numbers, like on the side of a road in Greenfield, like sitting in my Bobcat, trying to figure out how I can get paid for these like nutty hours that I worked last week. And all the while just feeling like totally insulted and disenfranchised, you know, and so this is similar to the kinds of scenarios that people are experiencing, and that kind of all of us are vulnerable to experiencing, you know, when we work this kind of hourly wage job, and what the challenges can be to resolving it.
Thank you. I have Scott Golding next.
Sorry, just had to unmute. Hi, my name's Scott Goulding. I live at 19 Quinn Drive in Holyoke, actually in Miss Bacon's, Councilor Bacon's ward.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I am. I lived in Holyoke my whole life. I worked in the Carpenters Union for 30 years and have just recently retired, and now I'm teaching in the city of Springfield. I was also teaching at Westover Job Corps, and part of the thing that I get to experience there is at-risk youth, the amount of abuse that does happen with wage theft. And you bring the point about bringing labor charges and things like that, and that is an option, but not for a lot of people. Like the last speaker just spoke about, if you are in the middle of trying to work and make enough money to buy groceries, being able to spend an hour or two on the phone every day trying to line everything up it will never happen. And these predatory contractors, they know that. And even if they do get caught and they go through it, then maybe they end up paying 10% of the times they've cheated. They only pay 10% of those times. As a taxpayer of Holyoke, that makes me angry, because I think, you know, the amount of tax dollars we get cheated out of in the city, there's no need for that. And insult to injury, if we offer a tax incentive, a TIF, to a project, and then there's money that's cheated on it, that's even worse. So I'd like to speak in favor of this, and I appreciate Mayor Murphy for bringing it up, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, it looks like it's Marangelis Castillo.
Yeah, hi. My name is Marangeli Castillo, and
your address? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I live in 15 Center Street in Holyoke, Mass, and I'm a union carpenter, local 336, and I just came here to just support people talking about wage theft. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. So let's turn it back to either Charlie or Lisa in response to the question that Councilor Bacon asked. How does this ordinance, is it redundant, or how does it deal with wage theft differently?
So I guess, Lisa, if you don't mind, I can speak.
Sure.
So Councilor, actually, the state is, as we know, a huge bureaucracy, and contractors that are involved in wage theft, it takes a long time to get the cases, put them together. And like I said, 1 out of 4 probably gets pursued. They may find that they were guilty of doing this, but they don't necessarily debar them from doing work. And on a private job, I actually spoke in front of Mass Development about a contractor that had so many wage theft cases, jobs, with proof and everything. And Mass Development's lawyer stood right there and said, well, they're not on any debarred list. And they got Mass Development money to do work on a job in South Hadley. And they had numerous cases of people being victimized by their subcontractors on their job. And there was really no clawback. This just ensures they do the right thing in your city to your people with your tax dollars. And it says, we're not going to allow it here. We're not going to give tax breaks to cheaters. We're not going to give tax breaks to people that come in and take advantage of people. And there's something else too, is a lot of people are just afraid. They don't have the wherewithal because the Attorney General won't take a hard copy complaint. It has to be emailed. And people are afraid. Maybe they're not here legally, but doesn't mean that they should be taken advantage of or abused because of their status. Somebody shouldn't victimize them. And the state just doesn't have they don't have the resources to cover everything. And this just maybe scares away the bad guys because they know that there's going to be some repercussions.
To add a little bit to that too, the Attorney General's office has issued a statement, the director of the Wage and Hour Division, saying that municipal action, that they support municipalities taking action on wage theft because they're limited in what they can do. And so this complements that they will do the investigations, but this says where a contractor has been found guilty by a state agency or a federal agency of wage theft, then they can't go and do work on a city job for a couple of years. And that if wage theft happens on a city project where there's city investment in it, it gives a way for the city to address the issue. So it's kind of separate, but they support each other of what's being done at the Attorney General's level.
Councilor Reagan, do you have any further questions?
No, I'm all set for now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so it seems like we have two different draft ordinances to consider. One, they're both dated 2/11, so I don't know how to explain the differences.
One has, they both are exactly the same with regards to wage theft, and one incorporates in diversity and residency and veteran supported goals on the workforce, and one does not have that component. Different municipalities that we've worked with have taken it up in different ways.
I see.
So that's the difference, is just creating opportunities locally and for recognizing and thanking veterans essentially for their service, and on the diversity end, addressing disparities that exist in the construction industry.
Mm-hmm. I see it now.
If I can, Madam Chair.
Please, Acting Mayor Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm certainly not opposed to that. My first goal here is just to make sure that whoever these contractors hire, they are treating them and paying them a fair wage and all of the standards. So that's my first goal in this. If we wanted to have and create additional incentives, I'd be okay with that. But my very first goal is to make sure that nobody thinks that it's going to be okay. You're going to get away with doing things that are beyond the law and taking advantage of workers. So that's my first goal, and I do think it complements what the state can do, and also I would hope that we would, when the state does take case and they know that someone that we should be able to say we want to know who they are so that we can bar them from contract, and so we would have a pretty solid record as to who should be being allowed to bid on city contracts and making sure that they follow the standard. So I could go. Whether we do the benefits or not, I mean, I think, there are certain things that, in terms of providing extra incentive, but I also don't want to discourage a contractor from coming and doing work in Holyoke because they are not getting enough Holyoke residents to participate. And I'm not exactly sure how that works. So I'll defer to the experts on that. But I mean, I do want to make sure that whoever gets the job, whoever hires people, that those people being hired are being treated fairly and that they're following, and we're getting the tax revenue, workers' comp is being paid, all of those kind of things are being handled correctly. So whichever way the committee would like to go, I'd be fine with that.
So when I look at these two documents, they are exactly the same, except for in the second template, we are defining people of color. And then in addition to talking about the way that contractors would be debarred or clawed back, we also talk about percentages of hours for people of color. Is that how I see that?
So if I may, yeah, the recommendations, and again, we appreciate you taking up this issue and defer to what makes sense for Holyoke. Let me just explain what the percentages are that we proposed. So the state requires diversity goals as a part of all of their state construction projects. So DCAM projects, UMass Building Authority, Holyoke Community College projects there. There are goals. So it's not a hard number. It's a goal for contractors to achieve of 15.3% people of color work hours and 6.9% women work hours. These strange numbers come from some similar federal goals for all transportation funds and federal funds that go into construction. And they're there because women and people of color have been disproportionately not accessing construction jobs. Again, their goals, any contractor coming in to do work in the city is, undoubtedly has come across them in other projects before. So it's not anything new. There's not a penalty if they don't meet them. It's a goal for them to achieve and to know that that's something that would be important to the city. We also then have a veteran goal, and some communities have been choosing to put in a veterans goal to respect and appreciate veteran services. That goal generally has been, Springfield has a 5% veteran goal, and that's what Easthampton has as well, work hours. It's usually very easily achieved. And then priority given to Holyoke residents is what I believe that the language says here. So not having a hard number. It's residency is a harder component for contractors, but at least where it's same priority to local residents, it gives, it's directing the contractor to be looking at that issue. And so if they have local residents who are soliciting work, hopefully they respond to them more favorably than they would just, somebody coming from a different town in the region. So those are the goals that have been put into place in a number of communities. Springfield actually went higher. So Springfield decided to do 20% people of color goal, and they put in a hard number on the residency side. So they put in 35% for both contracted work and work with tax breaks. Other smaller communities like Easthampton and Amherst have just done benefiting and prioritizing local residents, but haven't put a hard number on it.
If I can, I'm sorry, Councilor Bacon has your hand up, and I'm not going to. I'll defer.
Councilor Bacon and then Councilor Murphy.
I just want to make a general comment, and that is that I'm supportive of the workers being treated in an equitable fashion, and I'm supportive of having goals relative to local employment. But when we get into the whole hiring thing, we know under hiring, we can only give local emphasis if people are otherwise equally qualified. Otherwise, we're tripping into areas where we can run into problems with discrimination relative to hiring. So I don't see how we can put numbers in our ordinance, but I think we can state goals. I'm comfortable with contractors being held to legal standards and the employees also being held to legal standards. I think it should be consistent. We want the contractors to be conducting themselves properly and legally, and we want the employees that are working to be the same. Mm-hmm. So I'm comfortable as long as we're consistent in our application in the ordinance in a fair way. That's just my general approach. Thank you.
Thank you. I do. I'll respond, and then after Councilor Murphy talks,
it's just a comment.
Right. But I do think that based on what I heard Lisa Clausen just say, is that these are already the diversity goals that the state has for the contractors. And so I think all we're doing here is reiterating them if we chose to use those percentage numbers, as opposed to creating a hard and fast standard. I think that's the difference between what the state is looking for and what, for example, Springfield did. And I would say that we're probably on the smaller side, where I do think that it becomes difficult to say a specific number,
that was
as opposed to I think the percentage of hours is probably appropriate if they're stated at the state level. Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I again have some issues with trying to get specific numbers in the ideal. Obviously, they'd be all Holyoke residents for Holyoke projects, and obviously that's not going to happen. Charlie, you take care of that for me, though, okay? But I mean, I have no problem trying to put, preference be given to Holyoke when we can have qualified labor that is trained for that, and that kind of goes along with what Councilor Bacon just talked about. I mean, that makes sense to me. My goal here is to be in a position so that it's fair to the workers, it's fair to the city, and we're getting a legitimate contract. And that's why, the wage theft is the most important part of this thing to me, and being treated fairly. If we can suggest things, that's one thing, but to mandate things, mandate a specific number, and if that can't be done, I'm assuming if someone can't get a particular number, then I'm assuming they have to have some way of getting a waiver to that. So, my hope is that we do the wage theft. We make sure that we do not give contracts to companies that are going to violate state law, that are going to violate the wage theft, and that we make sure that they're out of our contract capacity for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever that might be. And I'm willing to go along with some kind of, we'd like to have preference to Holyoke residents. We'd like to have preference to veterans, to people of color, to women. I'm all for trying to balance that, but I'm not sure I can really go along with the idea that let's make it 10% of this and 20% of that. Simply because I'm not sure that really always will work. And I'm much more comfortable just saying it's a preference. This is what we'd like you to do. But we definitely don't want you to be cheating.
Right. And I think that there's very few individual sections of the ordinance that deal with these different classifications of employees. And I might even suggest that if we go with the version that calls out these different identities, that we could even say something to the effect of so I'm looking at, what is this, section 7 of 2A7. So it says the contractor shall provide employment in the amount of, and then it has the 15% contractor hours for people of color, women, and veterans. And we know that from our own experiences with Mass General Law that things change over time. And so it might be easier or more straightforward to say something to the effect of the contractor shall provide employment in the amount of percentage of contractor hours for people of color, women, and veterans that reflects the state law, so that it would change and be updated without having to do specific amendments to the ordinance that we adopt. So as the state thresholds change, our local thresholds would just reflect those state thresholds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, but then we have to make sure we know what they are.
It's true. All right, so
I mean, I don't know about any other members of the committee, but I haven't had a chance to really study the language in any depth at this point. So I'm certainly willing to consider it further, but I'm not ready to vote on something tonight.
No, I would go along with that. I mean, I think, you know, we got all this information, but it is a lot. It is a long.
I'm trying to look at all the attachments Jeffrey
Yep.
sent us. There's
Yep.
like 5 pages of them.
It is a long document. And obviously, I know I've talked to Lisa 2 years ago, I believe, and she didn't throw anything at me then, and she hasn't thrown at me. She's been talking about it, but she hasn't done it yet. So I mean, I think putting this aside for 2 more weeks, letting us go through the document, fine tune it, talk to the law department, make sure we're putting everything together that's doing what we want it to do, and then passing it in the middle of June. I would think that Lisa and Charlie and others would be happy that we're able to do that. So at least I'm hoping you would.
We appreciate you taking up this issue. It's a long-term issue. We just appreciate that you're taking it up.
I agree with what Lisa says. It's really so important. It's really about the people, and that's something that, you know, when we get caught up in the minutia of everything, we have to realize the people that get hurt by this stuff are really the people that can least afford it.
And that hurts our community.
Yes.
So, yes, we're hurting individuals, but we're also hurting, and we're hurting our community by allowing someone to basically cheat in order to get the work.
Well,
and limiting spending power for the community, for those workers in the community as well.
But I'm willing to table this if Council Bacon, that I'm assuming.
Yeah,
well, what I'd like to ask is that Jeffrey sends us the language under just the specific header for this matter.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm supportive of local control because I think that is closer to the work. And so I'm in favor of that. Okay. But I struggle with arbitrary numbers and groupings and categories because I want it to be fair for everybody.
Yeah, I'm kind of in line with that.
So let me just note.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor Greenie.
Yes, I'd like to request to get hard copy of all this information too, so I could do a thorough read of it. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I just want to point out that we have received the wage theft documents in a cluster, so that only the wage theft documents are in the part 1 of attachments for.
Oh, it's part 1? Okay.
Yes.
Because everything was in a different order than the agenda. It was hard to track it.
We had a lot of documents with all these public hearings that got pushed onto this agenda. They were not originally intended for this agenda, but because of prior continuations, they had to land here. So
it may have come, but could I ask Lisa or Charlie if they could actually send us Easthampton's piece of legislation and then Springfield's piece of legislation with their names on it, so we'll know specifically what, and then, you know, let us have those as kind of, I know they're a little bit different. Am I not correct? There's a little difference in between the two, not dramatic difference, but a little bit of difference.
Yeah, Springfield broke it out into 3 different ordinances. So they took on the tax relief separate from the contracts in 2 different ways, and Easthampton did it all as one.
Yeah. So I think they're trying to do the same thing. They're just doing it in 2 different paths, and maybe one of those will be more compatible for us. I don't know, but if we can get them, I think that would be, give us the documentation to say which one do we prefer.
All right.
And just for the record, we do have the part. Thank you. We do have the Easthampton version that was submitted in that part 1 email from Jeffrey. We would just be missing the Springfield version. So either Lisa or Charlie, if you could send that our way through Jeffrey is probably the best way.
Okay, I can do that, and I could do a new version of a Holyoke one that reflects the input here on, you know, the suggested changes around the numbers, and just for, again, I know it's still to be worked on, but as a
it might help streamline things to have one document to look at. The one last question that I would have is, you know, throughout the document, we're always looking at, you know, you're asking for a call out of a specific office or, municipal worker that is the one that is in charge of sort of monitoring this. And in Holyoke, we don't have a compliance officer. And I don't know if you could tell us off the top of your head if other communities are choosing the same person or if there's various departments or individuals that have been given this task. If so, who are they?
Sure. So it varies a lot by community on whether they have the resources for compliance or not. So the cities of Worcester and Springfield that have acted on this, they have it through the procurement department. They have compliance officers who do oversight. The city of Easthampton does not have the resources for that. And so I believe it was the town clerk that the information goes to. The procurement office actually is where it goes to. But the idea there is just that the contractors would file information, would send information, and the procurement office would file it away if there's a Freedom of Information Act request to look at this information. And that's where contractors would sign a one-page affidavit that they are going to comply with the ordinance, that they have not had a finding against them. And it just, the idea is not that a city like Easthampton has the ability to go out and check out job sites. They're just giving the notification to contractors, they have to comply with it. And then there's a means if somebody uncovers wage theft or brings forward wage theft to city council, to the mayor's office, to outside organization who brings it forward to the town, then they have a means to address it and a process for addressing it. But it's not an expectation at all that some city staff person is going to have to go out and be checking out job sites and making sure everyone's being paid properly, because they just don't have the resources for it. Certified payrolls are already required of contractors, that they have to pay prevailing wage and they have to submit that to the town. So it's really would go usually to the same place. And where a city has the resources to do compliance, like in Springfield and in Worcester, it's done through those certified payrolls, through doing checks of those records, is how they ensure that there's compliance.
Okay, all right. So yeah, if we could get a single document that reflects a bit of the conversation tonight, I think that'll help us navigate it. We will probably want to go through it, page by page or line by line, as it were. The other thing is, I think I understand the way that this ordinance is written. Like, there's a preamble here that reads as a resolution. And so I wonder if that preamble is necessary, just in terms of the way that we actually adopt the ordinance.
If I can, I'm really not a preamble type of guy. And the whereases and all that. I mean, I want to get to let's just go,
Okay.
If you are doing these things and you are going to violate labor laws, you're not going to pay work, then this is what's going to happen. I don't want to give anybody a whereas. I just want to say, follow the rules, play it fair, and if not, these are the consequences. I like to make it as simple as possible.
Sounds great.
Okay, is there a motion then?
I'll make a motion to table to the next meeting. Well, till we get the information and it comes up on the agenda.
Yeah, the next meeting is we're really supposed to deal with a whole bunch of zoning ordinances with the planning board. So it wouldn't be appropriate to take it up that night. So the 22nd would be the next likely date, June 22nd.
Well, we can just table it and we don't have to say a certain date, but that can be the goal.
Yes, thank you.
So I'll make the motion to table.
I'll second that. If I can just make one quick thought though, just in terms
of.
Sure,
before you second it then, because the motion to table is not up for discussion.
I didn't second that. You didn't hear that.
You took it back.
Just in an attempt to try to make sure if we get the information back, if you would, Madam Chair, if you could put it on the agenda for the 8th if we got the information and we were able to agree beforehand a little bit. I mean, obviously we're gonna have a chance to read it, then maybe we could get it adopted on the 15th so that we're not potentially going out until the first week in August, which is now taking it into 2 or 3 months, and we're getting in. Obviously, we're gonna have some construction contracts coming up, and I would like this to be in place if possible. If not, and then we can't do it till the 22nd, that's fine. But I'm just thinking if we got the information and we're probably gonna get it in the next couple of days, and we have a chance to review it and we feel comfortable, I would just say put it the last item on the agenda for the 8th. If we feel comfortable, if we don't, if we still have more questions, then we would put it off to the 22nd. If that works for Lisa and Charlie and others. To me, that gives us a chance to get it through before we go on summer recess.
Sure, I'll do exactly that. I'll put it on at the end, and if it seems like we have the time and ability to get there, then we could take it up. But
thank you. And I'll second the table.
Motion has been made and seconded to table this item. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so moved. Thanks everyone for coming this evening and weighing in on this issue. It is a really important issue, and I think as many of you highlighted, for the folks that live in Holyoke in particular, who can be abused by the system if there aren't proper protections in place. So we'll see you. I'll let you know if it is coming up on the 8th or the 22nd.
Thank you. Thank you, counselors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on in our agenda to item number 5. Is there a motion to take up item number 5 off the table?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded to take up item number 5. This is filed by Councilor McGivern that the City Council consider raising the maximum amount of reserve police officers from 24 to 35. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern. I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Chair Lisi, and I appreciate you putting us on the agenda tonight. The police department had mentioned this to me back in March, that the number of reserves, the cap is, I think, around 24 now, is not sufficient for the needs of what the department used reserves for. As I think we all know, but just to recap it, one, reserves are a way of hiring potential candidates to become permanent police officers, allowing them both to go through training and allowing them to be used in certain capacities as police officers and be able to utilize their performance in terms of their initial, in terms of their eventual selection as a permanent police officer. It also helps when the workforce is down to have an immediate pool to go to. They initially come off the civil service list itself, and it also helps to use their opportunity to perform the certain job tasks when there is openings within the department itself. So I think it makes sense to go from up to 35 for a cap. It doesn't cost any more money, with the exception of when there's one line item where they're paid per diem, and so we control that one line item in terms of the total cost for a quarter, for a budget for a fiscal year itself. So to me, it makes sense to hire the cap and to put more good men and women in position to do the job and to be available to be chosen as permanent police officers. I know Lieutenant Hart was here earlier. I'm not sure if he is still with us, but I know
it looks like he's still here, and I don't mind suspending the rules to allow him to speak to this issue. Does somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded to allow Lieutenant Hart to approach us and speak on the issue. Lieutenant Hart, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Councilor Lisi, for having us and having us on the agenda for tonight, and thanking Councilor McGivern as well for putting this on, and for Mayor Murphy for supporting this. Just to add to what Councilor McGivern said, all those things are true. What he said, they would help out. The additional reserves would help out tremendously, especially with the new reform bill coming. The training time is going to be extended for all officers, and with these new reserves, the additional reserves, once they're trained, they're going to be able to be hired immediately full-time and put right to work, and not in the past like going to another full-time police academy. So with the new reform bill, all officers, whether you're full-time, reserve, specials, auxiliary, have to have all the same training and fall within all the same regulations as full-time officers. So with that, we're also going to be losing a big number of our auxiliary force with the new reform bill. So it's very important that we get as many qualified and reserve officers on as we can, so we can move them to full-time.
Thank you. I see Councilor Aiken has her hand up. Councilor Aiken.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just wondering, how many reserve officers do we have now?
Right now, we have, I believe, 14, and I believe we just hired 10 new reserves to bring it up to 24, the total. However, it's, I believe, 11 of those 24 are going to be hired as full-time next month.
Okay, so if we increase it to 35, then you'll be looking for 21 people.
Yeah, that sounds correct.
And do you think we'll be able to recruit 21 people?
Yes, I believe there's several names on the list now for reserve officers. So we'll get that list through civil service once the full-timers are hired, because we can't get a list until we have spaces available, which is why, let's say, for example, they weren't hired in June and we were at 24. Well, we couldn't go above the 24 through civil service. We'd have to wait for that reserve list to go down.
Okay.
So now it opens up some space for us, so we don't have to wait now to call for a list from civil service, and time goes on, and we're always chasing our tails as far as full-time and reserve officers. So
right. I totally see the point on that. But could you just explain a little bit more why we're losing auxiliary people because of the reform bill? Is it that they won't be allowed?
Well, they have to fall under all of the same regulations as full-time. So one of them is age. So at age 65, you can no longer be a law enforcement officer. So all those who are over age are automatically eliminated. Any of those who do not have the full-time police academy training are not qualified. So this is all new stuff, and I'm sure through the next 6 months, year, and maybe a couple of years after that, there's going to be a lot of amendments, just because there are a lot of police departments that have volunteer forces. So that's going to, especially come parade time, we really utilize those officers. So now without them, it's going to be pretty difficult.
For auxiliary that you can't be over 65. I don't know. There's a few of us in the room who might object to that. I don't know. Sounds like age discrimination to me.
Well, that's the same thing with full-time police officers. That's all law enforcement. So.
Well, I know. And I'm just trying to be a little bit funny, but on the other hand, the auxiliary folks had a little different level of responsibility, and so it's just making it more restricted if they're all under that same umbrella with the reforms. That's the only thing. And I think that's what you're explaining to us, why we want to increase the number of reserve officers, which I'm totally supportive of.
Correct. Yeah.
But I hope they do amend some of those other things though, and let some of the things that aren't broken remain unbroken, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple of things. Last week or about 10 days ago, I appointed 5 new reserve officers. And we were hoping to get more, but we were only able to get 5. Next Tuesday, I'll be appointing 10 new patrol officers to get us close to 90, and I'm not sure it actually gets us to 90. And that will reduce our reserve force down to something along the lines of only like 6 or 7. So we are going to be pretty low in terms of that. I do know there have been, and hopefully we are going to get another list with many applicants, but I know because of all the things going on in the world right now, there has been less people applying to take exams and to do those kind of things in terms of getting to be a police officer. And I agree with Councilor Bacon. We need to have the state revisit the auxiliary police as a perfect example of maybe trying to do something overboard. But you know, we are trying to get the department up, and reserve officers help us do 2 things: get trained officers when they're ready to move up, and also keep our costs down. So there's 2 benefits, and we got to figure out a way to work our way through that.
Right.
And I
That's
think,
why I asked about the recruiting, right?
Yep. And it's a concern. And I've had meetings with the chief and several others, and it is a concern. How are we going to make up for the auxiliary? You know, when they pretty much have helped us be able to do many things at a very low cost. So.
Great.
Thank you.
And extending the limit, for example, like even though we just appointed 5 new recruits to be reserve officers, you know, we had, let's just say 11 or so, whatever that number was, only half of them actually came through. So we want to actually have the higher cap because we're always going to be accepting fewer than what the cap is, because people just make different decisions about where they're going to go.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion to increase the cap to 35.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. I have one last question for Lieutenant Hart, though, if you don't mind. So does the department have support for interpreting these new reforms and how they're going to apply, or is it largely something that the leadership in the department is doing? Like, is there legal support for you guys to navigate all these new laws that are coming from the reform bill?
Yes, we have Captain Duguay, who's in charge of that, and she's following all the guidelines that they're putting out, and we hope to meet all of those guidelines, which have to be submitted and implemented come July 1st.
Oh, so you have to submit a plan for how you are meeting those guidelines?
Actually submit all of the requirements that they're requiring by July 1st.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. On the motion then, thanks so much for that feedback, Lieutenant Hart.
Thank you.
On the motion then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. We have submitted for the full city council review of 35 positions in the reserve officers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Motion to take up item 6.
Motion has been made and seconded to take up item number 6. This is filed by Councilor Hernandez that a handicap sign be placed at 63 Taylor Street. All in favor to take this up off the table?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, under discussion, Councilor Hernandez, and I don't know if Jeff submitted anything from the Handicap Commission at this point in time.
Don did approve this. I got the measurements from Bob, and those measurements have been sent to legal for a draft.
Okay. Councilor Hernandez, do you want to say anything else about this, or?
No, I'm just pleased in the way that, you know, everything was looked at. There was some questions that were answered by the commission, and it was approved. And I'm pleased because the woman that lives there is in very much need of being able to park her car close to where she can arrive at the unit that she rents there. So I'm very happy with the work that the commission did and looking forward to have it voted on at the full city council.
Okay, so then there's a motion to adopt the ordinance change and create the handicap placard on the recommendation of the Commission on Disabilities.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. That concludes our agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion is made and seconded. Let's not debate it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Have a
Good
good
night,
night,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Night. Good
Thank
night,
you.
Councilor Greening.